a bit like gun.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to the BeerDad and Brew podcast. As always, I am your host, the hostess with the mostest, the BeerDad himself, Justin Allen, and I am joined by Sir Brandon from the hills of Agora. Brandon, what's up, buddy?
Hey, what's up, dude? How's it going?
That's going pretty good. So we are not in our normal fashion. We are virtual. So you're actually in the hills of Agora, and I am in the hills of Hemet. I don't know what you want to call it out here.
The desert of Hemet, I guess.
Yes, I am currently on a iMac right now, so that's different than being in a brewery. But I am about to pour a beverage real quick because I'm thirsty.
Yeah, do it, man. What are you pouring? I'm excited about what I'm drinking.
Probably not as excited as I am right now because this is something that you gave me that got stuck in the back of the fridge, and I found it today, and I'm like, I'm drinking this.
Oh, I think I know what it is. I can see. Yeah.
Let's see if you can. I don't know that this camera doesn't like the fit.
Borts.
There we go. The Borts.
Yeah.
Borts from Highland Park Brewing in Los Angeles, California, and it is a dark lager, so that's like my favorite beer right now. So I'm gonna enjoy this. Very nice. What are you drinking, Brandon?
Yeah, that's why I snagged you one. I'm excited for you to try it. It's like one of the better dark lagers I've had over the past like year or so. But I'm drinking a beer from a brewery that you and I are both incredibly fond of.
See the E.
Yeah.
There it is.
Enegren. Kolsch from Enegren. And I'm saving you a can. Next time I see you, I'm going to bring you one. First time they brewed. Yeah, first time I believe that they just brewed a Kolsch. I don't believe they've ever brewed a Kolsch before. But
I can't think of any Kolsch's I've had from them, but that's really cool. So, well, today is a very special episode because we are actually joined by some special guests. This is something that's going to be really cool because for our listeners, we are not only going to drink beer today, but we're also going to have some kind of a higher ABV adult beverage, if you will. I've got whiskey. Or what are you going to be drinking, Brandon?
It's a surprise. I got a story. So when we get into that part of the show, there's a story tied to it. I don't want to ruin it right now.
Awesome.
I think it'll be better, but yeah.
Awesome. Well, we're joined by Mike and Phil, and they are here from the Bar Book, an app coming to your phone soon, right? So Mike, Phil, how you guys doing?
Doing good. Yeah, great, man.
Awesome. Well, welcome to the show. I'm really excited to hear all about your company and all about what your plans are. And I know the listeners are going to be really, really excited. And then also for us to partake in some beverages we don't normally have on the show. So that's kind of cool. So first and foremost, Mike, go ahead and tell us a little bit about the Bar Book as I take a sip of my dark lager.
Enjoy it. So the Bar Book is probably the best way to explain it is Spotify for alcohol. I know that's probably not the best marketing terms, but hey, for ease of listening, it's what it is. You know how Spotify, you listen to music, you like it, don't like it. The next thing you know, it's going to share other music that's similar, right?
Right.
We're going to do the same thing with alcohol, beers and spirits. We're just staying away from wines. Quite honestly, that's a whole nother market that I don't know much about. I'm not a wine guy. But my wife and I were talking about this one day, trying to do our own collection of things that we like. And I couldn't find a way to record all of it. And then I couldn't find a way, even when I could find recording, I couldn't find a way to tell me what I'd like next.
Right.
And craft beer is a little cheaper to experiment with. Not cheap, but it's a little cheaper to experiment with than, spirits. You can go from, $100 bottles to $1,000 bottles when you're talking bourbons and tequilas on the high end. And if you don't even know if you like them, man, that could be a waste. So, this should help, right?
Yeah.
And it'll be I guess the best way to do is cross genres, right? So if you tell the flavors you like in a bourbon, it might help you with finding a beer you like in that same kind of flavor profile.
Awesome. I mean, so far, everything sounds really, really cool. And I like that whole kind of comparison to Spotify, because when I did a little research, right? Looking at your page and following you guys and kind of listening to other influencers and some of the podcasts that you've done already. And the Spotify comparison, I think, is really cool because there's other apps. There's a ton of apps out there, right? Untapped being one of the big ones, which is specifically beer. I think they've allowed seltzers now.
Yeah, they allow seltzer, hard seltzer, ciders
and stuff like that. So
hard tea, anything like canned,
but not liquor,
like canned cocktail,
not liquor,
exactly.
Not wine, stuff like that. So But this, adding the liquor to it, I think is another element, because I think right now, I think you're coming in at a really good time, because I think right now there's a big push for bourbon and whiskey. And then in some of the flavored spirits that, that have those crazy flavors, which I'm going to have one here in a little bit that really goes marketing hard on people that say, I don't like whiskey. I don't like this. I don't like that. Right. Much like the craft beer industry. I don't like beer. Okay. Well, here's a heavily fruited sour with guava and pineapple juice. Enjoy. Right. So they're definitely marketing hard to, newer drinkers or inexperienced drinkers. And I think your app is coming in at the right time. And I really like what you said, where beverages, especially on the distilled side, can get really, really expensive. And I mean, I can't imagine what it's like for, a 22, 23-year-old, someone in the military that has a very fixed budget, but they want to buy something really nice. Maybe they're going to a party or something like that. And they're like, I got $100 budget and I'm going to go buy, and some people don't realize some of these damn bottles can get into the thousands, but I got $100 budget. They can use your app and essentially find something that will actually say, this is what the flavor profile is. This tastes good. So they don't get burned by buying like I have. Like I used to have a horrible experience with Scottish whiskey. I don't like that smoked flavor until I learned how to drink it properly. And I remember one time I bought, what was it? Lafroig or something like that. I can't remember. But it's was
a very smoky one.
Yeah, it was like $125 for the bottle, and I could not drink it. I ended up giving it to somebody.
I did the same thing with a bottle of Lagavulin, 12 year. I was like, oh, it was a collector's edition. And I bought it. I was like, oh, I'm going to buy two because I couldn't, I didn't see them ever. And I opened it up and took one glass out of it and like never touched it again. And like, that was a waste of money.
Right. Yeah. So that's cool. Like, I mean, you're developing something that's definitely going to help out, some people. And it's like, when I was going through my mind about the whole Spotify thing too, I was like, it's going to make me sound like an alcoholic, that it's going to like adapt to my taste and tell me what I need and all this stuff. But it really like in the long run, it does other than that. It's helping like cater to your taste, what you might like, and give you preferences and references. Correct?
Correct. And so it's actually funny. This is not pre-planned or canned, but you brought up the young kid that's shopping for a bottle that doesn't know what he needs and only has $100 to spend. And it's like you were hanging out with us earlier today, because we were literally in a liquor store, because when we travel, we stop at different liquor stores because different states, different laws. I mean, that's another reason this is so great. Prohibition laws have messed up uniformity across the states. But so we're in South Carolina, we're in a liquor store. My brother and I are going through, checking out bottles, like, man, I like this one, like that one. And this young guy is staring at this bottle and can't decide whether he wants to buy it. And I was like, which one are you looking at? And he tells me, and I'm like, I don't know, man, what do you need it for? And he's like, oh, we need it for a wedding. He's like, but I'm not really a bourbon drinker, so I don't know what I should get. And I'm like, well, who's getting married? He's like, I'm getting married. I was like, okay, so why are you buying bourbon? He's like, well, it's a tradition. We got to buy this bottle of bourbon and we got to do it this way. And I've got to have it. And I only want to spend about $100 and I don't know what to do. So literally we were sitting there in the store with him having the conversation about his flavors that he likes and his profile and his wife's flavors and all these different things. And they were like, okay, man, here's a recommendation over here. Get this one. It's $80. It'll go exactly what you want. You'll like it. He's like, oh man, that's great. And I'm like, that's what the app is going to help you with.
Right. Like transferring all that knowledge into an app that can just help people.
Awesome.
And that's awesome.
But it's also, it'll go the other direction. If somebody's like, they're looking at that, that $150 bottle of Blanton's and they're like, oh man, I wonder what that tastes like. Well, okay, well, you can go the other direction. There's a $30 bottle down here that tastes almost exactly the same. And, that's your budget everyday drinker. And it's like, it tastes just as good.
Yeah. And it's good for somebody to hear that, because there are some, whiskey, bourbon aficionados out there that will, well, this is, the cheap stuff or whatever. But then there's the ones that are like the real ones, exactly what you just said, that said like, you could go for like, what is it, Blanton's Gold or whatever, the more limited edition. Or you can go with like the standard Blanton's, and to the untrained whiskey drinker, they're not going to really notice the difference.
Even
maybe
regular
slightly.
Blanton's is $150 a bottle now.
Right. Oh man, Blanton's, I love Blanton's.
So yes, it is a great bottle, but to the point that we're talking about, like there are bottles that are $30 that are, just as good for somebody who doesn't need, the bottle with the horse on top.
Awesome.
That's
Well,
cool. Can I ask? I want to ask a quick question. So let's say I go on the app. I got a buddy's birthday coming up. I know he
Yeah.
loves tequila, and I know maybe like other types of tequilas or maybe other types of alcohols that he likes. Like, how could I like, is it only flavor profile based, or could you type in, hey, I know he likes this kind of beer, this kind of tequila. What are other types of alcohols that he may like?
So to start, to keep the algorithm simple as it builds, we're starting with like categories, if that makes sense. I guess that's the easiest way to break it down. So if you look up a bottle of tequila and let's say Patron, right? You're like, man, I know I like Patron, but I really don't want Patron this time. You'll put in a Patron, it'll come up as a Blanco tequila, and then it will show you a bunch of other Blanco tequilas at the bottom of the page that are similar to Patron. Now, they may not be exactly like Patron. Obviously, they're similar. And we can only go off of, what is the input from the distillers themselves. So if they say it tastes like XYZ, it tastes like XYZ, but that's where it's at right now. Eventually, as the algorithm grows and learns, because it's AI, it's technology, it's learning. And as it eventually grows and learns, that will expand to where you can see those and more, so that you can see, the tequilas that it matches, and then more. Like, okay, I know my friend loves a Patron tequila. What kind of beers might he like based on that? And it may need a little bit more data. It maybe have to be a little more personal, but it eventually is going to get there.
Like you said, that more personal, that's part of the user interfaces. Once you get it out there, you got, Joe over here saying, all right, here's my personal profile. I like, Patron. And then I also like this other tequila I think is similar. And then, Anne over here is like, well, I like Patron. And yeah, I think that one's kind of similar too. So you're going to have that merger of user flavor profiles that mix in with there. And that's going to be that, real world comparison, I guess.
Got it. That's awesome. Yeah, that was my next question, is like, how does the user interface kind of work in terms of like getting data from the users and whatnot? But yeah, that's awesome, man. Like, that's going to be so valuable to just help build that community and like the algorithm and whatnot. And yeah,
I mean,
that's a really cool tool.
It is truly going to be, I mean, we're talking about this. So this is going to come out in the next probably about 2 weeks. It's going to hit the app stores. That's at least what I've been told by the development team. They're fighting tooth and nail every day to make sure they do everything they can to get this out.
And they've been working on it for what?
Yeah, it's been about a year in the making.
Wow.
But it is going to, well, when it comes out, it's going to be, remember, anytime a PlayStation comes out, right? The first model, the first generation, everybody's like, all right, let's see it work a little bit before I buy it. Right. Yeah. It's going to be like that. I mean, we fully expect that. It's going to come out. There's going to be some bugs. There's going to be some things we have to fix. We're going to have to tweak some things, mess with the algorithm. Like, that's going to happen. I would never expect it to come out and just be totally perfect day one. But as it comes out and as it grows, I mean, we've already got the plan written to take it to the next steps. I mean, you mentioned, from the beginning, Untapped. I love Untapped. Untapped is great in this market, but like you said, Untapped only does beer. But you know what Untapped does? Or Untapped only does beer, and Untapped only does, matching, whether you can rate and review those beers, right? They're not doing flavor profile matching. But another thing that Untapped does that benefits the beer market, especially craft beer, and you as a future brewery owner are going to love that about Untapped, is that they allow you to build your menu on Untapped and then share it with the world, right? You build your menu. Now everybody can see your beer. Well, we're going to do the same thing. That's, phase 2, as that comes out, we're going to have that same kind of feature. But where we're unique is, what about the craft distilleries? Now we're going to have those guys, and we're going to have all those. So now a Southern California distillery comes out and they make a version of a rum or a version of a bourbon or a version of their own, American single malt whiskey, and they put it on there. Immediately they're sharing it with the community on the Barbook, app. So that's kind of where, that's the next step that we're getting to, is to kind of be in that same space, but, dealing with whiskey, or not whiskey, but spirits.
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah. Cause I see Untapped, at least just speaking from personal experience, I use Untapped kind of as like my beer diary in a way, or journal of, tracking like all, different breweries I've been to, different beers that I've had, where I had them. But I wouldn't necessarily use it as a resource to like help me find different beers, or let's say if it did incorporate spirits, different You know what I mean? Whereas like you guys are providing this really cool resource where it's like, hey, I want to, yeah.
Two reasons you wouldn't, and this is, average, and I'm not saying you specifically, I'm talking this about everybody. Two reasons you wouldn't. First off, beer is relatively cheap. You can get a flight of beer anywhere $15-20, right? You're going to get anywhere between your 3 glass and 6 glass. Doesn't really, just depends on the brewery. But beer is cheap in that regard. Spirits are not. And if you go to a distillery and you do that same kind of flight, some places are going to go all the way down to, if you pay for the tour, you get it for free, but still you're paying $45-50 for that.
Yeah.
Or if you buy the flight of their stuff, they're charging you $45-50 for the flight. It's not cheap. And they're little tiny pours. And then if you go into a state like where we're from in Virginia, it becomes even more complicated, which is the second reason, which is the complexity of prohibition laws. So in Virginia, you can't even do that except for 3 ounces, maximum 3 ounces. So they have to be micro pours in order for you to be able to taste a little bit of everything, because they can only give you 3 ounces. That's the law. Otherwise, it starts worrying about bars and whatever. They're a distillery.
It's 3 ounces combined over the whole flight.
Yes, combined over the flight. So yeah, so it's not a 3 ounce pour. It's like if they have
splashes
6, you're getting little splashes, right?
Yeah.
And you're trying to taste it. Wow. So distilleries have entirely different laws when it comes to that. Again, this is prohibition laws that have come out. And then shipping across state lines. I literally learned, Thursday when I visited a friend's distillery, yesterday, when I visited a friend's distillery, that in North Carolina, the ABC laws are so difficult that instead of just selling your product to the state alcohol board and letting them put it in every ABV store, you have to sell it to regional stores, and they put it in their bundles of stores. So you could literally have a spirit made in North Carolina, sold to stores, but it won't be available in the entire state.
Wow.
Because of the way stuff's marketed. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
So
every state's different.
Yeah. You guys are fortunately in California. You got pretty easy access to a lot of things.
Yeah.
We do. They definitely made things easier for basically the consumer. I can tell you right now, dealing with ABC here in California, trying to do this brewery thing's been a nightmare in itself. But because there are some archaic laws here, even here in California, that apply to like the ownership and the licensing and what you can and can't do in a tap room and what needs to be in place and like silly stuff. But for the consumer, though, I mean, we do have a lot of luxuries, especially like in the craft beer industry. And of course, sometimes the counties have something to say with it, too. But then our distilleries are doing pretty good, and they're starting to pop up a lot in the area, which is cool. And a lot of craft breweries are actually getting into distilling as well down here. I know Ballast Point was one of the bigger companies that started, when they started their distillery. Of course, they ended up selling it through the whole. I mean, they've sold twice now, but when they first started, they started that whole distillery thing, and that was really cool. But yeah, this is crazy, man. What? How did you come up with this?
So, as I was retiring, or as I was, hitting the back end of my military career, by the way,
thank you for your service. In case the listeners don't know, you are a Navy veteran. Army. Okay. What about your brother? He looks like he's in the military. Oh man, he's mad at me now. He's like, "Do you think no." Phil, are you in the military too?
No, sir.
No?
Not
with that haircut, you're not in the military?
This is fresh this morning. That's the only reason it looks good.
Maybe is it because your brother cut it and he's like, you looking like a hippie?
No. Funny story about that. The last time I let him cut my hair was
we were drinking.
Let's see. It was
we were drinking.
It was in Virginia.
Yeah, it was in Virginia years ago.
Now, I used to go stay with him on base, when I was younger, and just I needed a vacation. I would just go hang out with him. And we were all hanging out on base at his house, and him and his buddies were drinking. And I was like, I got to go to work on Monday, and I didn't get a chance to get a haircut. So they're like, well, we'll cut your hair. And I was getting the same type of haircut back then. And so Michael's like, sit down in the chair. I'll take care of it. And then we're a few drinks in at this point. And he's doing a good job. A lot of few. And then all of a sudden you just hear him giggle and just takes off one of my eyebrows. Just cleans it clear off. And at that point, I was like, I was 21, 22, and I was fresh at a new job for, I hadn't been there more than a year, and I was like, oh, they're gonna be so pissed when I show up at work Monday and I got missing an eyebrow. And I mean, I
Oh
was a little
man.
upset and a little drunk about it. And his buddy comes up to me and he goes, "Why are you so upset?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm missing an eyebrow." And he goes, "It's not that bad." And goes, shaves both of his off.
Oh,
In solidarity. That's a good brother.
wow.
Yes. 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 I had some crazy friends growing up.
Yeah.
But yeah, so military service has been great, as you can tell. But so as I was finishing my end of my career, I mean, I started out as Philip's mentioning, my best idea of a cocktail was Jack and Coke.
Yeah.
Right. If somebody asked me what it was, I was like, what is on the bottom shelf for less than $20 that I can mix with some whatever soda that we've got in the fridge or juice? And boom, I got a cocktail. So that was all I knew. Later, I learned a little bit about craft, beers and start to be able to experiment. But I didn't know anything about matching a flavor or I just know whether I liked it or didn't. And then, like I said, as I'm finishing my career, I started hanging out with some guys that was much more senior, and they were, aficionados and cigars and whiskeys and tequilas. And they're explaining to me all these things and they're letting me try them. And I'm like, man, these are really good. How much do these cost? And they're telling me about them. And I'm like, dude, there's no way I can keep up with trying all these things with the costs and everything. And then I don't even know what I like. So long story short, they were sharing their flavors, telling me what they think I'd like. I started looking for an app to record those things and try to help me. And there really wasn't. I mean, there are apps that will, similar to Untappd, that'll let you rate, review, and kind of build your collection. But if you've never had a collection and you don't know what you're talking about, then it really doesn't help you much.
Yeah.
Right.
So if you're kind of starting out, you're like lost. And let's be honest, it's expensive.
Yeah.
So Dolly and I, my wife, we started, at the time she was my girlfriend, we started talking about some things, and she's got a palate, right? Like, so she can tell you the difference between, oh, that has a raspberry flavor or that has a cocoa flavor or whatever. And I'm like, well, it's good or bad. But she can tell you those differences. And so she would talk to me about that because she's a wine drinker. And she's like, so let's start looking for that. We started looking, couldn't find. And then eventually talking with some friends and family, we're like, all right, let's see if we can build it. And, hey, took a stab in the dark. So January 2023, made some phone calls, called a developer and started building the bar book.
Nice.
Sounds like an easy journey. I will tell you, don't do it unless your marriage is intact and your wallet is as too, because it's expensive and it's stressful.
Yeah.
But it's been a fun ride.
Awesome. I can definitely feel you on that right now. I mean, this whole beer journey for myself. I mean, I've been doing the podcast for 4 years, and that's not exactly a lucrative deal. We're not Joe Rogan yet. One day, maybe, but we've been 4.5 years in, and over 10,000 downloads, and we're plugging away, doing our thing, and it's been a ride, but it got me in the beer industry. I mean, I was just a craft beer fan prior to. I met my original co-host, Josh. He taught me how to brew, got into home brewing. And then we did the podcast and traveled and interviewed amazing brewers and owners of breweries and met a lot of people in the industry. And then flash forward to, I said, I've been working as a first responder for, 15, 16 years now. And I'm kind of over it at this point in my 40s. And I'm like, I want to start a brewery. I want to own a brewery, and I want to not have to work for our governor anymore. And so here I am. And the wife gave me the blessing, and we started last April and launched our beer brand. We contract brew at a brewery in San Diego, great partnership with Creative Creature down there. And launched BeerDads Brewworks, and it's been a crazy ride. Seeing our beers on shelves and in bars is really fun. I just want to get that tap room open because that's where all the profit's at. You don't make a lot of money selling to liquor stores and bars. But it's definitely been a journey so far, and I can definitely feel you on that. Having a supportive wife, been married almost 20 years, for her to support this whole craziness, and then having to go through it, like you said, financially, it's been crazy. It's been hard.
Dude, you're right.
But
like,
there's an end goal, right?
Yeah, you're right. That is the key, right? Like, so the blessing of the spouse in order to support you and follow you and chase this with you, like that's huge, because this doesn't happen, without that, right? And picking up and going in a new direction is challenging as you do it. Separate note, by the way, send me BrewDad's tasting notes, and we'll upload all your pictures and stuff on the
Got you.
Barbara so that they can
Got
do
you.
that. I mean, hey, like, so the other part that makes this the coolest, and it's probably similar to your podcast journey, right, is the people, right? Like,
Yeah.
the community around the bourbons, the beers, the tequilas, just the people you hang out with and talk with. Like, dude, you get basically, have a job that makes me do this.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Right. So, yeah, I think that's one of the coolest parts about this. And then bringing light to brands that don't have billion-dollar advertising budgets.
Yeah. Absolutely. Taking care of the little guy, because Brandon can attest to this, especially in the craft beer industry. Sometimes we find the most phenomenal breweries, and they are the littlest small mom and pop brewery. Maybe they're pushing 3-barrel systems and really, really small tap selection, maybe 8 to 10 taps, and the actual tap room itself maybe seating for 20 people, 30 people.
Yeah.
But you go in there and a friendly face, and a lot of times it's the owner that's behind the bar, and they're pushing out some of the best beers that we can find in Southern California. So it doesn't have to be, a big company, and that's, what we're all about, is supporting small business, supporting the craft beer industry. A lot of our microbreweries, especially because of COVID, have been going through a lot, and they didn't have those multi-million-dollar budgets like, Big Beverage and InBev and companies like that. So, it's cool that your app is going to be supporting some of the little guys.
No,
Yeah,
dude, I love it because it's going to level the playing field, right? Because at the end of the day, the bar book, the algorithm doesn't give a shit about your advertising budgets. You can't buy a better rating. You can't buy any of that. Like, it's just not designed that way. I'd love it if somebody came in and said, "I'll pay you, $50 million to put me on the top of the list." Well, that's great, but it just doesn't work that way.
Right.
It is truly about, and so the other part to this is it's not about a community rating. There is a community rating. Let's be clear about that. There is a rating that says, this beer that I'm drinking is rated 3 out of 5, 4 out of 5, 10, whatever. Like, there is that rating. It does exist, but it really doesn't matter, because what it matters is how is it rated to you, because we all taste stuff differently. We all like different things. So that's it.
I think that's great too. And what really sells me on it is, you guys mentioned Untapped earlier. Going into the brewing industry, a lot of my friends that are in the industry already, they basically gave me several bits of advice. And one advice when it came to Untapped is don't pay attention to it. Try not to read it, because people will rate your beers horribly, and not because it's bad beer, but it's because of beer they don't like. And so then it's not fair, right? Whereas your app is going to be like, okay, it's based on flavor profiles and things that you like and stuff like that. Yeah, there'll be a rating, which is fine. But if I'm, like I have one of my beers that I'm going to drink here. If I'm, saying like, okay, well, this is it, and it happens to be a hazy double IPA and it's got real pineapple in it. Like, if that's something you're into, like, hey, it's going to bring me to it. Right. Whereas on Untapped, I could get somebody that'll tell me, I'm going to rate it a 0.5 because I hate pineapple.
Yeah.
Right. Not that the beer tastes terrible, but because they hate pineapple, they're going to give it a 0.5. Right. And that's
Correct.
what Untapped is. I remember when we first launched back in April, we shortly after that, we did our very first beer fest in, I believe it was June, down in San Diego at Liberty Station. Beautiful venue, by the way. If you guys ever come out for a beer fest, it's right on the water. It's an old Navy base. The submarine base is right into there. Have you been there?
I've been to San Diego. Never do a beer fest, but I used to go down there to that Navy base down there. But yeah,
we all need to go for the next one. The four of us, we need to go.
I love it.
Yeah, we might be pouring at the next one. So, but it was in June, and so we launched with 2 styles. We launched with our core beer, which is Dad Bod. It's a blonde ale. Easy drinking, 5% everyday drinking beer. It's designed to kind of like take that place in the big beverage world that everybody's hating on right now, as far as like that blue collar everyday drinking beer. And so we had that, and then we also had our father figure West Coast IPA baseball edition. So every year, every sports season, we change up the hops, same grain bill, just change the hops on it. So that was the baseball edition. And man, we had the longest line. It was so great, and people were loving us. My business partner John and I were dressed in full dad gear with the New Balances, denim jeans, fanny packs, all the good
There you
stuff.
go. I was hoping you were gonna tell him.
Yeah.
I was gonna
Is that
interrupt you
a
and say,
costume? Like I have that at home. I didn't
No,
know
it's
that
like
was
an everyday outfit. That's and I wouldn't say everyday outfit.
Well,
That's
hold up. My favorite part was they had the baby sling, but they had
yes.
this big old like bottle instead of a baby in the sling, it was like a big bottle. And you guys are like pouring
We did. So
from the
my brother Andrew, he came in and helped us pour. And there's a VIP hour where if you paid extra, the VIPs got in an hour early to the festival.
Yep.
And most breweries had a special beer on hand, and we actually had a beer that we did as a collaboration with Oscar's Brewing in Temecula. Good friend of mine, Joe, the head brewer there. He's awesome. Right when we launched, I said, "Hey man, can we do a collab with you to help put our name out there? Because they're an established brewery and restaurant." And he was like, "Yeah, absolutely." We came in there, did it, and of course, it was a dark lager because that's what I really like right now. It's called Papa Bear. The can art was beautiful, done by our artist, Perfect Strangers Design. It was a bear because that's their mascot, but he was in full New Balance drip with grilling on the barbecue. And so we bottled it in one of those huge Magnum bottles. And my brother put it in a baby backpack. And so when people came in for the VIP hour, if they wanted the dark lager, he would pull that big old Magnum out of the baby backpack and pour it for them. So we had a shtick going, and we were the talk of the beer fest. They're like, "Who are these guys? They're brand new. These guys are great. You got to go get down there and take pictures with them." And we had some merchandise that we had for the event, and it was a lot of fun. But at that festival, we had the longest line, and we're doing so good. And then like I went on Untapped, of course, and we were doing good. I think our dad bod's like averaging 3.5, 3.6 or something like that. And the father figure a little bit higher than that, which is San Diego West Coast IPA is pretty popular down there. But I was reading some of the really low reviews, and it's like the one that gave me a 0.5 for the blonde. It said something about like it tasted like a 1986 MGD, and it wasn't his thing, not his style. He prefers IPAs and this and that. I'm like, so why rate it? If you don't like this style, why even bother? Like check it in, don't rate it, because you can do that. It only hurts our rating.
At least it wasn't like rating it like a natty ice
Dude,
rate.
that guy that wrote that was probably born in 97, 98.
Probably.
Didn't even know what 1986 looks like.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. Yeah, so I'm not a big fan of the Untapped, so I'm really excited to see your app. I really am, because I think there's a big difference there.
And in all fairness, those reviews will exist. They will, and people will not like them. You can't help that. People would write what they're going to write, and they're going to say what they're going to say, and that's fine. It is what it is. That's what they do. But what we're going to do is we're going to find the people that are in your area that like beers similar to your beers but don't know about your beers, and now they will be introduced to your beers. So the idea is gravitational pull to those. That's what we're trying to do here is, whether it's a whiskey or a beer, or if you're a seltzer, we've got seltzers too, we've got all that stuff, but whatever it is, we're trying to do the pull. The other thing we're trying to do is, we're trying to give you a platform to tell people about your stuff, to put it out there. So it's not there yet, but we are building, like I said, phase 2 is building the brand pages to where you can build your beer page and share all the things you're building as you build it live and put it out there. So, we're getting there.
Awesome.
So say, just so I fully understand. So like, let's say I'm a brewery or I'm a distillery, in this phase 2, I would be able to create a profile for my, let's say, brewery, and be able to upload my beers, and with their flavor profiles and whatever other data. And, that's cool. But right now, that's something that like your team is kind of doing, and there's no.
So right now our development team is actually looking at the, they're what you call wire diagrams and connections, and trying to figure out, if you click this button, what takes you to that. But they're building it. So they're building it in the abstract, and then as they build it, they're going to show it to me. We'll go back and forth for a little while, and then next thing you know, it's going to end up as a version 2.0.
Yeah, they're currently building each profile brand or beer by beer.
Yeah, right now we're building beer by beer. So, like for example, you send me all your beer profiles or an email with all your tasting notes. We're building one by one. Like I will
Yeah.
upload a picture and we will type in all your tasting notes and do all that's how it's getting built today.
Yeah.
But the goal in the future is that we allow you to build yours because you can share it with me and I can put it on there, but it's your brand. You want to share it faster than I can share it. So that's what we're trying to get to.
I love it. I love the expandability of it and everything that you've already developed so far, and where the future could potentially take you. It for me, with apps, like with the way technology's going, and they're just going to get better and better and better. So and your concept, I think, is something that's not really being done yet, and so I think you're coming out at the right time, and I think this is really rad. That's cool. And then I can say, hey, I had those guys on my podcast, like when you guys were like really famous.
And then we'll come back and then we'll be like, now look at that, I've got these guys airing their beer on here, right? Like
hopefully I'm not working for the state by that time.
No, because you're going to be running your own tap room and your own beer, and then we're going to be sitting in your. The next time we do this, we'll be doing it in your brewery.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
Hey man, I'm gonna crack a beer to that.
I like that. I was actually thinking about that myself.
I got my next one. Hold on.
Me too.
What are you guys sipping on, by the way? I know you told us before we started recording, but let the folks know.
So I snagged these out today. They're Dogfish Head 120 IPA. So this is a special release that they do. Every year they release a 120 IPA. It is a very, this one has a very coffee, chocolatey type flavor to it, but they're great, man. From year to year, they do a great beer, and I don't even remember what the ABV is on these things, but I'm sure they're pretty.
It's gonna be up there. Yeah, it's gonna be up there. That's the one you said, the 120, right?
Yeah, 120s.
Yeah,
doesn't even say on there.
Yeah, it probably doesn't say. Probably for good reason.
Yeah.
All it says is
they don't want you to. If you have to ask, it's too much, right?
Exactly.
Right. Yeah, the ABV is. Don't worry about it.
It's less than this. So
right.
Yeah, less than whiskey, but more than beer.
Yeah,
that's hilarious.
All right, I got one. BeerDad's gonna recognize this.
Oh,
one.
Dude, that's what
I know. I heard you teeing it up.
All right, there you go. Well, then I'm gonna do it at the same time. I'll save this other one for later. Let me grab it real quick.
Okay.
So we'll talk about it here.
Yeah. Anyway, I mean, I'll let you talk about it, Justin.
Yeah.
We've had it on the show before, but this beer is Dad's Hawaiian Shirt. This is one of the newest beers that you guys have released at BeerDad's Brewworks. Right?
It is. This is this is a cool beer. It's growing on me because I'm not one to say throw a pineapple in my IPA. I do it on my pizza though. I'm one of those guys. If you guys aren't fans of pineapple on pizza, there you go. Good. Cheers. Mike's like, no. It's always like I feel like it's a 50-50 on pineapple on pizza. Yeah. But this is Dad's Hawaiian Shirt Hazy Double IPA. It's 8% ABV. And it's kind of a cool beer because something different that's kind of new in the industry was done with it in terms of the pineapple. And that was using Dole Whip powder as opposed to puree. That's different. And kind of the way I explain it is with pineapple purees, you buy them throughout the year. Pineapples always have a tendency throughout the year to change flavor profiles. You got overly sweet, overly ripe. You've got bitter, not so ripe, and it changes. And I've talked to many brewers who have told me, sometimes they'll spend thousands of dollars on pineapple puree and get it, and it's horrible, and it's not going to blend well with beer. Dole Whip is something that is consistent because it's essentially like freeze-dried powder.
Okay.
And so you're going to have a consistent flavor. And so the brewery that we contract brew at,
sorry to cut you off, and also a cost effective.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. A little cheaper on the budget in bulk for sure. But the head brewer at Creative Creature, where we contract brew at, Mikey, we all love Mikey. He was like, he's like a mad scientist. He likes to jack around with crazy stuff. And he had told me about it. He's like, yeah, I've used it and it comes out great. And so like, let's do it. Because either way, I was like, I'm not a fan of pineapple in my beer. But then this is like really growing on me. And what I really like about it is, as far as being a double IPA, usually with a double, it's a little more intense, a little more bitter. Obviously the ABV is higher, but the pineapple, that we used, it just balances it so well. And I've heard so many people, it was really cool. We just did a special event last Saturday, down at the Creative Creature tap room. It was kind of like we took over the tap room and we sold their beers, but we had our pineapple.
Yeah.
And it was cool. And just hearing people tell me like, wow, this is really good. Like I just love how it doesn't taste like it's 8%, and the pineapple is so subtle. It's not overly sweet, because that's what I was worried about. I didn't want like a fruited sour flavor. I wanted it to be an IPA. And it came out good. And Perfect Strangers Design does all our can art. Garth Humbert, who also developed an app called Open Tap app, which is a SoCal based app. He's an amazing artist, but if you guys can see on the can here, it's got the Hawaiian shirt print. It's got our logo. It's got the golf stuff on there for the dads. There's a book of dad jokes, and actually our theme is obviously dad stuff, and every can has a dad joke on it. So this particular can says, "Do they allow loud laughing in Hawaii, or just aloha?" So, cheesy stuff like that, because my daughter hates it. That's kind of what we're all about. So,
yeah. So it's really good, man.
That's awesome.
Yeah, like the pineapple, kind of like what Justin was saying, the pineapple is pretty subtle. Whereas when you get those like pineapple hazy IPAs, it can be super overpowering, almost that like sugary kind of taste and quality.
Yeah.
And they did a really good job brewing with it. BeerDad, I'm not just saying that because you're my buddy. It's a good beer. I really enjoy drinking it. And I mean, and that's a cool thing too about, like you could put that kind of information on the bar book, saying like,
absolutely. Hey, so I mean, that would be perfect right up the alley. So what I will tell you, Justin, is first off, send me a sample pack. Let me figure out how to pay for shipping and get this done, because we will definitely reciprocate the tasting on that, and that would be awesome. But so I love the dad themed perfectly. That is amazing. So I took my son, funny story. I was talking to a new brewery in the neighborhood. I was going to visit, my son. I just picked him up from his mom's house. He was coming back for the week. And I was like, all right, dude, I got to stop at a brewery. I got to meet with some guys. We got to talk about some things. And he's like, all right, Dad, whatever, let's go. We go in there. He's blown away. So first, the brewery is named G3 4.3.
Oh, wow.
So G3 4.3 is the name of a cloud that was discovered in 1995 with the Hubble telescope, whatever. But G3 4.3 is what they call space booze. And it is a cloud of alcohol out in the galaxy out there. They've figured out that it has so much beer in it, or so much alcohol in it, that it could make enough beer for everybody for like years and years and years. Anyway, so they're looking that up. So we're talking space, we're talking beer, we're talking this. My son is blown away. So everything in there is space themed. They're all a bunch of, former military guys. So he loves that too. And I let him be the cameraman. I was like, look, man, I'm going to be talking to them about some stuff. Just take pictures for me. Take pictures, take video. So while I'm tasting beers, he's literally sitting there with his can, with my phone, taking pictures. Hey, Dad, move this way. Hold on. I got to get a better picture of this. Like, he's going to be far better at this than me in the future. The fear is that he's going to be good at, identifying flavors in craft beers before he's 22.
That's really cool. It's funny. I know Brandon's laughing because he's like, man, like in a similar extent, we had my son, we did our Christmas episode. We always stay at a cabin up in the mountains. Brandon came up and joined us, and my son, he's 5. He wants to do everything that Dad does. It's scary because if you leave a beer on a counter, he'll pick it up and drink it just because Dad does, and he has no problem with the flavor. Like most kids go, ew, like he'll drink the whole damn thing. Brandon's seen him. He picked up my beer and started chugging. But he was taking pictures, video. He wanted to be a part of it. He even asked me tonight. I'm like, buddy, we'll hang out with Mom tonight. But he's a good little dude. Monkey see, monkey do. But I love my kids, and that's kind of why I wanted to do this, and also an homage to my dad too as well, because he, I love my dad and I love my stepdad too. But it's just one of those things where I felt like it's a niche kind of thing, and I think it resonates with a lot of people, both, even though a lot of it people think is geared towards men. But there's, women out there that love their dads too. And, you know, as far as our tap room goes, kind of what our idea and our design is to make it inviting and look like Dad's garage. You know, nothing fancy, just like a beat up old couch and some lawnmowers and toolboxes and,
That's
you know,
awesome.
just, you know, something different and where people will come in and feel welcome because they're hanging out with Dad in the garage, drinking a beer with Dad. You know, that's kind of what
The bar's a tool
our goal
bench.
is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, that's fantastic. I know I listened into one of your guys' others podcasts, and you're talking about branding and marketing and doing that stuff, and that fits right in, dude.
Yeah.
That's sweet.
Yeah, definitely is something that I really thought about and kind of where it all drip. I mean, obviously with the podcast, it was, you know, I'm the beer dad. That's just kind of the nickname I was given. And then I started the podcast. And it just kind of blossomed from there. And one night when I was like, okay, when my wife said, go ahead, figure it out. I was late night and I did a trademark search and I applied for Dad Bod beer, because I know there's been some breweries that have made a Dad Bod beer, but it's like one-off beer, right? We wanted to market this like Happy Dad seltzer, like we're really gonna push hard with it here in the future. And thing came back and said it's available, and well, the way it works is you pay us. I don't know if you guys have done this yet, but you pay a small fee, they search it, and then all of a sudden your credit card gets hit for a big fee because that means that it's available. And then the application process gets sent to the feds, and then you wait. And so I was like, I can't believe that was available. This is crazy. So then I'm like, all right, here we go. So we have like the trademark. We own some web domains like Drink Dad Bod and of course BeerDad's Brewworks. And I'm like, all right, well, this is it. And I'm like, we're just going to market hard with dad and dad jokes and stuff like that and roll with it. And people, so far, the response has been great. So.
No, that's a fantastic concept. I mean, we did the same thing with the bar book. We went off and did the trademark search, and I was like, man, I can't believe if you Google bar book, right, you come up with all kinds of these actual books, and people have all these names and all these things, and we haven't started advertising or marketing in the Google space until we launch, but for the most part, those things come up. And I was like, oh man, somebody's going to have this trademarked, right? And so then I went and looked and no, they don't. And then, then it came time to logo design, played around with that. And, again, nobody has anything similar. I looked through the trademark database and was like, man, there is nothing that looks like this. Okay, this is going to be easy.
Right.
At least it was easy to apply. We got the one where they give you the serial number approval, like you said, and then eventually you get the formal, it's all done. We've done all our vetting, which that takes forever.
Yeah.
But so we did all ours. So a bar book, I learned this as I was doing the research because I was trying to come up with names, and names were coming up like, we were going all off into left field. Like I had Codex. I had, different things. And I was like, man, what is this thing going to look? My wife really reined me back in and was like, stop. Like, let's make this simple. So a bar book, if you were to look up what a bar book is like a bartender's, intellectual property, right? That's their notebook. They keep that around. That's what they have behind the bar that has their little recipes, their own personal, tweaks on things, their own flavors that they know about. It's how they're able to sit and look at the person on the other side of the bar and be like, you're going to like, a scotch and soda. You're going to like an old fashioned. Yeah. You're going to like a Cosmo, right? That's how they know because they've got their own little cheat sheet. Well, that's what this is for you. And that's kind of where we went that route, right? Like, so we came up with that kind of stuff. And I'll tell you what, man, some of the earliest designs of that logo, speaking of marketing and stuff, I have glasses that look closer to wine glasses than they do Glencairn glasses. And then books that look closer to Bibles than bar books. And, as we're drawing through the designs and coming through this, and I was like, man, and every time I think I had it, every time I played around with enough with the graphic designers and I'm like, we've got it. I'd go to my wife and I'm like, here it is. And she'd go, no. Well, that sucks. That's horrible. So then we finally got to the logo we have now. She looked at me and she's like, just do a rocks glass and build it around that. And so then we started with that. And then when we built the logo that it is today, which is the, rocks glass with a B, and we put that out. My wife was like, I think this is it. So she takes it and she does a step further. She takes it to the kids. So we've got, our kids together and she's like, all right, look at this. And when the kids looked at it and they were like, oh, okay, from the logo. They don't know much about what we're doing, but they're from the logo. They were like, oh, so it's about drinking. And we're like, yeah. We're like,
Yeah.
okay, that's the logo. The kids get it. Is
That's
awesome.
without reading anything, they get it. So
Yeah, that's a good litmus test. Like,
Yeah.
all right. Yeah.
The
No,
wife,
I really dig the logo, man. It's really cool.
it's
It kind of
clean.
looks like this little
good.
like yeah, and it kind of looks like a little bit of smoke is like billowing out of the glass in a way. Like, yeah, it's kind of cool, man. Yeah,
Definitely
You guys did a good
clean and simple. And I think a lot of
And you
people
wanted it
enjoy
to be
that.
recognizable. Like
Yeah.
you see that and you like automatically know what it is. Because when you're looking at your phone, you see all those apps and all the different icons. You want to be able to be that first one, like, oh, I
Yeah.
can get it real quick.
for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's funny you say that. Like I use my wife too. Luckily with Perfect Strangers Design, our artist, he's got a lot of experience in the craft beer industry, and he's a good dude. It didn't take a whole lot of back and forth as far as our like logo, our branding and stuff like that. When we first worked on it, I kind of tell him, "Here's what I'm thinking," and then he shot me back like within a couple hours some stuff. And minor tweaks and adjustments as far as like our company logo goes. And then when it comes to can art, he's just really good. Like that's what I like to do is I'm like, all right, here, this is the name of the beer and this is kind of what I want. Right. Like with his dad's Hawaiian shirt, I said,
With the
listen,
can
give me
art, the can art, like you're talking about, that is so key, especially when you're going on a grocery store shelf or a bar or just alcohol store shelf. Like when you're going on a shelf, the can art is key. And if you've got somebody like you've got that can nail it out of the box,
yeah,
dude, that's going to win. I mean, you're drawn to it with your eyes, unless, like I said, unless you've got the $1 billion advertising budgets that some people have, that you just know, I'm looking for that one name. Other than that, it's what draws your eye. And
right.
dude, I love the can. I do. I think that's really cool stuff. So I'm anxious to try your guys' stuff too.
Yeah.
And believe me, June in San Diego would be cool. I gotta see what
Get away from the
Let's do it,
humidity of
man.
the East Coast. Yeah.
Let's do it. Put
Yeah,
it
we-
on your
I
calendar.
Yeah, I would love to come out and do the beer fest and hang out there in June in California. Yeah.
That's awesome.
My wife would be like, we're going.
We definitely had a good time at the last one. It was really cool to be.
Dolly. You're good. Go.
Yeah. Be brand new and nobody knew who we were, other than Creative Creature, because that's our sister brewery and they were right next to us. But then everybody they're like, look at that dude's canopy. We had flags. We have a dad bod beer flag and a father figure flag.
Nice.
And then the full marketed canopy and stuff like that. Like
But
it
that's
brought them
scary,
in.
right?
Yeah.
But that's fucking scary as hell. I'm sorry.
No,
That's
you're
scary as
good. You
hell.
can cuss as
That's
much as
scary
you
as
want.
hell. I mean, like I'm in the same boat, right? Like I'm talking about, we're 2 weeks from being able to share this with the world, what we've been working on and building. And I know that it's not going to come out perfect. Like I've already embraced that. And I'm ready for the 0.5 rating on this going, you suck. I hate you. Like I got that, right? Like somebody's going to do it. I got it. It may be this guy.
Nah, I don't know.
But somebody's going to do it. But
I have to.
But yeah, man, like I envy you guys that you've already done it. Like you're there. So you've already kicked that first door in and put yourself in the marketplace. And that's, dude, bravo, because that's scary as shit.
It is. And, I obviously, because of the podcast, I had some foots in the door right when we initially launched, a couple bottle shops and liquor stores here and there that had followed the podcast, or we had on the podcast. And they're like, as soon as your beer comes out, we're taking it, like the Craft Lounge, which is one of our sponsors of the show. It's a craft beer bottle shop. By the way, their anniversary is coming up March 9th, their 5-year anniversary. Really excited for them.
Happy anniversary. March 9th is a big day.
Yeah. So they're gonna have a big shindig. They had a collab beer that they did with Solaris Beer and Blending and Murrieta, and they're gonna have multiple food vendors and stuff. So they'll have to make an appearance because it's required.
It's really twisting your arm, I can see.
Right. They, Jimmy, the owner, he was just like super excited when I told him what I was doing, and he was like, yep, take it right when it comes out. And so, he did, as well as some other places throughout the Inland Empire area, as well as San Diego. And, it started with our first launch that we did. I think we did what was it, 6 barrels, 3 barrels of each brand, and we sold out in like a week and a half, I think it was, of all of our product to all the different stores. And then one of my liquor stores, which happened to be in a really small town, Hemet, California, which is kind of where I live. We're on the outskirts, but liquor store here, which is very small population, they sold out in one day of their product, and he called me and needed more. And luckily I had a couple cases I got to him, and he's been a regular customer, restocking every couple weeks.
Wow.
But
That's
yeah,
awesome, man.
it's cool to see that. And then, people posting on Instagram, tagging us and stuff like that. It's like, it's really cool to see, because that went from a conception, like, oh, this is what we're going to do overnight, talking to the wife, getting her blessing, to there it is in the store. There it is in a liquor store. Cool to like take my dad different places. Like, we went to a volleyball tournament, that my daughter was in, and I stopped at a liquor store on the way because my daughter asked for like a Gatorade or something, because we were meeting her there. And we went to the liquor store, and I told my dad, like, here, come this way. And I was like, hey, look at those beers up there. And he looked, and he's like, I see it, because it was up on the shelves, and like, it's just kind of cool to see that, and
Absolutely.
yeah. So, and same for you.
So,
like, once it's on the marketplace and people are talking about it, it's like, holy crap, that's mine.
that's right. So, hey, I'm going to need like a, sidebar favor, because I haven't been able to do this yet. I mean, I'm totally off topic here, but Brandon and Justin, I'm not allowed to have a beard, right? So we're going to go to beard talk for just a second, because I'm jealous, jealous as hell.
He says
Because
he can't have one. He just can't
Wait,
grow.
well, it doesn't even matter.
Yeah. I was gonna ask, is it like your lady doesn't like it?
No, so Dolly, my wife, absolutely hates it. So she, I think I've gone as much as a week, and I can't get to either one of you status in a week, right? Like, that's just not happening. This is what I have. This little stubble here is about 3 days, maybe 4 days, but no. And I'm only able to do this because I'm in South Carolina, she's in Virginia, and it's just okay. But when I come home, literally my wife is like, here's a razor, go get rid of that. And I'm like, no, I want a beard. And she, again, I'm sorry if this is too much for users, she will literally look at me and be like, no, if you stop shaving, so do I. And I'm like, game over.
Wow. That's good. She's good, man. Dang.
It's funny you say that. My really good friend, my best friend, Jose, him and I were partners on the ambulance for about 7 years. And, he, obviously, us as medics, we couldn't have facial hair. So there was one time when the BeerDad didn't have the facial hair, until I now work for the state for the highway patrol. I don't normally say that on the podcast, but yeah, Gavin Newsom's my boss. It's unfortunate. I used to have the rock the handlebar mustache, typical EMS firefighter look.
Yes.
But for him, Jose, his wife, she hates facial hair, and she used to tell him, like when we'd go on vacation and he would try to grow his beard or something like that, she'd tell him, I ain't shaving and you ain't getting any until that thing gets shaved. And so sometimes he was like, he liked it and he wanted to grow it out. So sometimes he would, suffer and go through that because he wanted to have his beard, whereas me, the total opposite. Obviously once I got out of working on the ambulance, I started working highway patrol, and then eventually got into the position that I'm in. And I'm like, and my lieutenant's like, grow a beard. Here I am. And, I never looked back. And, my wife loves it. At first, that whole kind of like weird, like Amish stage when it first starts growing, she wasn't a fan of. But once it got to longer beard, she loves it, because she's like, yeah, you look like, Sons of Anarchy, and I'm into that. And so she loves it. And so actually, it just got trimmed. Like they took I think a couple, maybe 2-3 inches off, and I had told them I just want to do like razor lines here, trim the mustache, and just cut the dead ends off. And I heard him; it sounded like the weed whacker going. I was like, what was that? And he kind of looked at me, and I was like, and then I looked at him like, oh, it's so short. And then I'm like, well, I'm going to the Bahamas. It's going to be, warm, tropical.
I had the 4-inch goatee for a little while, and that was as far as I went.
Wow.
I was like, no more.
Okay.
Yeah, I look like a baby face.
I need to get to Brandon's stage, because that's where I just want to be, right? Yeah. Just enough that it covers the face. Like where Brandon's at is great. I would love to go full beard like you, Justin, but I can't. She won't let me. And quite honestly, that would take me a long time. I don't, it's just not going to do it. But I'd love to get there, but she is adamant that is just not going to happen. She looks at it and she's like, just think about that. Like she would look at your beer, Justin, and she would be like, imagine what gets stuck in there. Like he eats food and there's something that gets hung in there. Like he's got a tortilla chip in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's saving it for later.
It's definitely something you got to get used to once you grow it, for sure.
Yeah. But maybe you can you got to position it the right way. You got to be like, all right, look, once the app gets to a certain milestone, I want to grow a celebration beard and we're going to try it out together. I'm going to grow it and I don't want any feedback until 2 weeks or whatever, the time period you think would be.
I've got to get to the point to where it's not prickly.
Okay.
Because that's the big part. Yeah. So she's like, I can't even kiss you because it's prickly, right?
So that's when you just take a 2-month road trip around the country.
Dude,
right.
I cannot leave for 2 months.
Yeah, eventually, I mean, with this thing, you're going to be doing a lot of travel, and you already know that.
Exactly.
You've already done some, but yeah, you got to have that travel beard going and say, hey, and then eventually when it gets to Brandon's stage where it's not prickly anymore and it's nice and soft and you manicure it and beard oil and all that kind of stuff, maybe she'll like it. You never know.
Yeah.
Speaking of travel, I have a fucking, he's like a brother of mine, right? Like he's another brother, but he is a military brother, right? So the guy is fantastic and he is, a huge fan of the bar book, ready to go, whatever. And I was telling him yeah, I'm going to have to do this travel. I'm going to have to start going out and talking to these people and kind of promoting and, all this kind of stuff. And he's like, I got a camper, I got a truck, let's go. And he is exactly what you're talking about. He is ready to. He's got no connections but him and his dog, and he is ready to let's road trip across the U.S. and do it for 3 months. He does not care, and
That's awesome.
Everybody's got the quote unquote bury a body friend. That's the bury a body friend, right? He's the guy that will do anything for you. The Sons of Anarchy friend to peg the reference, right?
I love that. It's like that. He's an actor. He's on The Sopranos. I don't know if you've seen his little shtick, but he's totally mafioso, and he has that saying where he's talking about taking over a country or rescuing someone from a country, and he's like, all you need is 3 motherfuckers, right? You just need those 3 that you can call at any time of the night, and just those 3, you guys can take over a whole damn country, right? Yes. We all have friends like that.
Who's the actor on?
I don't know. He was just.
We're gonna talk about.
Yeah.
Who is he?
He was on Sopranos. He was just on Joe Rogan. I can't think of his name because he was on Joe Rogan. I think yesterday morning or the day before. He's kind of heavy set, obviously Italian. He was on The Sopranos. He's
Who did
really
he play?
Thick Italian accent. I didn't watch the show.
About the main actor, are you?
No, not Tony Soprano. No, it was. He was one of the muscles of the group. You would recognize him if you saw him.
Okay.
Yeah,
but yeah, he's
just
like,
right
I'll just pull up Rogan's podcast and see what it was.
Yeah, he's just like, all you need is 3 motherfuckers. You need 3 motherfuckers,
That's true. I mean, if you go back and you go back and look at any of these great crime dynasties, right, where they made a fortune, the Escobar, the guys in Harlem, they were a tight-knit group of guys that were basically 3 dudes that could take on anything. And that's it. That's all it was. And so, I agree.
Yeah. So you got your friend. He wants to travel. And that's so cool. And just a little backstory of our podcast, kind of where I got the idea for this podcast was he no longer does it, but he, older gentleman based out of Missouri, he was called the Brews Traveler. And I listened to his podcast. It's one of the first podcasts I started listening to in terms of beer. And he was a history teacher, which was really cool because one of the only subjects you could ever get the BeerDad to pay attention to was history, especially U.S. history.
Yeah. No, I love it.
Yeah. And he would always incorporate history. And what he did is he had a little Super C, mini motorhome. And he traveled the country and went to breweries and he interviewed the brewery owners and brewers and stuff like that. And he would put their stickers all over his RV and he went from place to place to place to place. And he actually owned a bar in St. Louis-ish area. It's like an Irish pub. And he was just very soft spoken, older gentleman, but he would always he was in one time he was in Ohio and he started talking about the river and the history behind it and the Native Americans that lived there and all this kind of cool stuff. And like he, and then would interview the owner and stuff. And then like one time he literally, I was like, man, I don't know how he pulled this off, but he interviewed the owner of Langenkugel's, and he was at the Lanny Lounge.
Oh my God, I love that place.
He had the owner on his show and it was just so cool. And they gifted him like one of the paddles from the wall. Like it was so cool. And I was like, I could do this. And that's where my idea came for the podcast. I was like, and that's kind of what I wanted to do. And we have traveled. We do a little bit of travel, but not as much as I would like to, because there's like zero budget right now. But one day, you know, when it takes off, the brewery takes off and I have more, you know, financial backing, then that's something I want to do. Because like his show was so cool.
You're also scared of hotel chairs.
Yeah. I'd rather have that motorhome because I know that chair's not in the motorhome.
Right.
I'll have to like look over my shoulder, like, all right, someone's watching me over here, you know?
One of the cool things about Justin, you know, you learn once you become his friend, and now we're all friends, is that he's got this like innate ability to like just any room he walks into, like he just becomes everybody's friend right away. Like
I love that.
Walk in, like I'll go and order a beer or I'll, you know, go use the bathroom or something. And by the time I come back, like Justin's already like best friends with everybody. I'm like, dude, we just got here, man. Like,
right.
How do you already know everybody that's here by a first name?
Because it is beer culture, right? Like you have a few beers or one beer or whatever. Yeah. And the next thing you know, everything is solved by buying somebody a beer or having a beer with somebody. Period.
Right. Yeah.
I don't even know a place I've been to in my life that I've never, like, even throughout the military, where I show up in a different bar, if I felt like I was, you know, out of place or didn't know enough people, I'd be like, hey, we're just going to buy beers and just talk to people. And the next thing you know, everybody is your friend. So I love that.
Yeah.
No,
you know, it's one of those things when you do like personality tests and stuff like that, definitely an extrovert, right? And where I can talk to anybody. I'm not shy. I'm not bashful. You know, currently right now, my position, I'm an instructor. I teach, you know, post classes, and I don't have a fear of public speaking or anything like that. Like I can get up. I always wanted to be a stand-up comedian. I've done a couple open mic nights here and there, and you know, I just don't have a problem with it, and that's just my personality. And like, you know, like you said, I've been accused. Like one of my coworkers that I work with, Haley, she always says, like, I don't want to go anywhere with you because if we have a tight schedule, you end up meeting somebody and we're there for like 45 minutes to an hour talking to some random stranger. Yeah. And I'm like, okay. And then John, my business partner, he gets, not that he gets irritated, he just thinks it's funny because his point's proven many times. But I don't know if I have this look that is approachable, but the weirdos tend to come and approach me and tell me their life stories. And he's like, it happens all the time, everywhere we go. And he's like, case in point. So he told his wife, and his wife was laughing. When we were up on the Central Coast, we were in a liquor store that ended up taking on our product. It was in where were we? San Luis Obispo. And this guy just walks up to me and he starts telling me about how he hates the sheriff's department. They ruined his life. He just got out of jail. He told me his whole life story. And John's like, this guy has no idea who you are or what background you are. And he was talking so much smack about the, you know, whatever San Luis County Sheriff's Department and all this. And I'm just like sitting there like, yeah, you know, I'm really sorry to hear that, you know, I hope your life gets a little better. Yeah, but they just comes up to me and John's like, see, these crazy guys, they always come up to you and just start telling you their life story. Like, I guess I have that look, you know?
That's true, man.
Yeah.
Boys, I'm sorry. I'm gonna go pee. I'm gonna go pee really quick. You guys keep going though.
Hell yeah.
You guys keep going. I apologize.
Yeah, Justin, we're gonna be best friends because that happens a lot. Like I'm good with that. I do that everywhere I go. There's sometimes my wife, who is an extreme extrovert, goes, "You're more of an extrovert than I am," and I don't even know how that's possible. And I'm like, I just meet people and have a good time. Like, especially if we're at my place, like, which is a brewery, distillery, bar, you know, just to hang out. I can just talk to people. But if I go to her place, which is, you know, wineries and things like that, okay, I can talk to people, but I don't have as much to connect with.
Yeah. It's one of those things. I'm with you on the wine stuff. And of course, my business partner, John, love you, brother. He's got a wine company, and that's kind of how we use his company to distribute our beer. And it's it's one of those things where like I do feel out of place in that realm. I'm starting to get a little bit better though, especially because I've been, John and I have been friends a long time. We met working at the Highway Patrol, and um, he came up with this concept, and I love it. It's called Thin Vine Wines, and they are all first responder and military based wine labels. And every purchase, there's a significant like donation that goes to different, like Wounded Warrior Project for the military wine label and stuff like that.
Yeah.
There's a Thin Blue wine and stuff like that for law enforcement. There's a one for dispatchers. There's one for Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and he also just launched a new one for ASPCA for the dogs and stuff. So it's he calls it wine for a purpose. And I'm just like, I don't like wine, but then I'm starting to get into like the different types of blends and stuff like that. Where
You're California, you gotta like wine. Duh.
Well, that's what everybody tells me, and I'm just like, because I think
Maybe
of
you're
like
Southern California, you're not Northern California.
Right, there you go. Well, I think when I think of wine, or before I met John and we started talking about wine, but I always thought of like $2 Chuck at Trader Joe's. I don't know if you guys have those back there. I know it's kind of a California. Okay.
We have Trader Joe's, yeah.
So $2 Chuck was like cheap wine, and you would take it or like the boxed wine you get at Costco and stuff like that. And there's
Mad Dog or
Boone's Farm. Boone's Farm, yeah. I had that in high school. Stuff like that.
So here's the question. Here's the true test of how much do you like wine, or how good of you with wine? Because I know where I stand. If you go to a wine tasting and they pour you 4 glasses of wine, do you spit it out if you don't like it?
It's funny. I don't like to be rude. If they're not watching, I might not drink it, and I'll slide it over to somebody else that's going to like it.
But if you drink it, you're going to drink it.
Yeah. I mean, just out of respect, same thing with beer. Like, and I run across beers that I don't care for sometimes too. But when it comes to wine, I'm just like,
women listening, you just swallow it and get past it.
That's right. Right. Yeah. Just for America, right?
Walk back.
We're talking about wine, Brandon.
Good Lord.
No, so Justin, I am a non-wine drinker, and my wife Dolly gets extremely frustrated with me, because if we'll go to a winery and we will try wines, and if they give me a flight of wines, and she'll be like, okay, try this white, and I'll sip it, and then I'll swirl it around in my mouth. I'll do all the things I'm supposed to, and then I'll just drink the whole glass. And she goes, but you didn't like it. I'm like, but it's free alcohol. I've got it. I'm going to drink it. And she's like, but why? You don't like this. And I'm like, okay.
Get drunk real quick.
Next wine. Like, if I keep drinking all of these, eventually I'll like one.
Right.
And she's like, but if you don't like it, you're not supposed to drink it. You pour it out, you spit it out, you let it go. And I'm like, it's fucking wine. Like, no.
Still booze.
So, but for whiskey, or for a high-end whiskey tasting, if I sip it and taste it and I don't like it, I'll leave it. Like Scotch, as we talked about earlier. Like, if I try a Scotch and I'm like, dude, that's not me, I just won't drink anymore.
Right.
But for wines, I'm like, they're so mild, I'll just drink anything. I don't care.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny you mentioned whiskey tasting on the cruise. The first night of the cruise, I signed up for the whiskey tasting. We did it the last time. And my uncle that's going with me, he was like, that was the best part of the cruise. So he was all excited. I signed us up for one. And I remember it was really cool because I mentioned Scottish whiskey, how I didn't care for it. And and this is not for everybody, but the guy that was doing the whole guided whiskey tasting with all the different styles, we did Japanese, we did Scottish, we did Irish, we did American, Kentucky, like all, it was really cool. I think it's $50, which sounds like a lot, but I think we ended up doing like 12 or 14 different, whiskeys.
Yeah. That's amazing.
Yeah. And so it was really cool. And actually at the end, he's like, this is not part of it. It's usually, saved for the bourbon side, but it was like a Pappy Van Winkle bottle that he pulled out. And he was like, hey, this bottle right here, Justin Bieber bought a bottle, and it was like $1,300. And he was like, he was just showing it to us. And then it was either Pappy or Rip. I'm not sure.
No. Yeah, but it's it's expensive.
But he was like, you know what? I'm just going to crack this bottle and let you guys taste it. And he's like, this isn't part of it, but I just want you guys to experience it. And I was like, holy cow. And then I asked him, out of curiosity, if I wanted to say buy a taster of that or a splash of that, what do you guys charge here on the cruise ship? And he was like $65 for a 1 ounce pour. And I was like,
Jesus.
oh my God. But we were getting it as part of our
Actually,
package.
I'd have bought it.
That's really good.
I would have bought it.
That's
Yeah.
cheap.
I would have
Is
bought
it?
it. So,
Well, he poured it for us for free. We didn't pay for it. Like he was
Yeah,
like, this
no,
is part
good
like,
for you. That's
Yeah.
amazing. I would have
And
definitely done that too.
it was
But
really cool.
So I bought a bottle. Actually, Dolly bought it for me. It was a Valentine's Day gift. In South Carolina, she picked it up. So we've got family down here. We come down here every so often. But she bought a bottle of Old Fitzgerald, 19-year bottled
wow.
and bond. Okay,
Yeah.
so that bottle in Washington, D.C., if you can find it, goes for somewhere between $2,300 and $2,500 a bottle for a fifth.
Oh,
So we found it on a shelf in South Carolina at a liquor store that didn't really realize what they had for about $450. And
wow.
even when I saw it for $450, I was like, man, I can't bring myself to spend $400 on a bottle. I just
That
can't.
hurts.
And I told
Yeah.
her, and I walked away. She, being the good wife, was like, bullshit, I'm buying it. And she bought it.
Yeah.
And so we waited until, after our wedding day and everything,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, after my retirement stuff. And then she cracked it open and we tried it and everything. Great bottle, phenomenal.
Yeah.
But I had it before at other stores where I found it, and it was $55 for 1 ounce.
Yeah.
To the point where in one store where I ordered it, it was a restaurant. We were in DC and I ordered it and they were like, oh, it's $55 an ounce. And I'm like, okay, bring it here. I had 3 different people from the restaurant, from the waiter to the bartender to the manager, come over different times separately and ask me if I was sure. They're like, are you sure you want this pour? It's $55 an ounce. And I'm like, that's good. I'm okay. Yes. Then the next was same thing. When the manager came over, she brought the actual bottle on a tray, on like a little cart tray, and was like, do you want your picture taken with the bottle?
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, I've had this before. I'm okay. And she's like, are you sure? We do this whole promotion where we'll take your picture. We can, and I'm like, I really just like it. Can I have it? And like,
Yeah.
it was a production. So,
That's the one thing about bourbon that is gotten a little bit out of hand in the past few years is the pricing. Like this bottle we're drinking right now, it's Johnny Drum from Willett Distillery, and it used to be like $20 a bottle. And I found this, if you can find it, for $45.
Wow.
And
I've never heard of it. Where's the distillery at?
It's in Bardstown, Kentucky.
Kentucky. Okay, so it's Kentucky bourbon.
Yeah. It's the Willett Distillery. They've got a lot of different brands. I'm actually a really big fan of their brand.
Okay.
They've got a lot of good ones. And this one they used to be their cheaper one that you could find. It was a good damn drinker.
It was their their bottom shelf.
Yeah, it's 101 proof. I mean, it's a decent bourbon.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, I stopped being able to find it in my local liquor store. I couldn't find it anywhere locally, and I just happened to see it down here, on the shelf, and it was $40-something a bottle. And I was like, well, I ain't had it in a while. I might as well try it. Pick up a bottle.
Yeah.
Sure.
But it's crazy it's like all your good budget bourbons everybody found, and now they just jacked up the price on them all.
Wow. That's crazy.
I did have a question for you guys since you guys are into beer. So I'm actually from the Cincinnati area.
Okay.
And there's a big craft beer boom in Cincinnati right now.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm talking, I guess there was a lot of.
He's a former home brewer too.
Okay.
Oh, wow. That's
Don't give it
awesome,
up.
man.
Keep going.
Not much.
Yeah, that's
I
awesome,
did
man.
some wine and stuff like that when I was younger. Nothing worth drinking, that's for sure.
Hey, man, it never is until it is, like,
Yeah. But
anyway.
they've been bringing back a lot of brewery brands, and I've seen there's a lot of push saying like Cincinnati is in this craft beer revival. And I'm wondering, like you guys talking about, like in Southern California, you're seeing a lot of little breweries and stuff. Is that what you're seeing everywhere? Because it just seems so condensed in Cincinnati. Like they're just on every corner. Everybody's brewing a beer.
It just depends on like what part of California you're in. Obviously, San Diego is what they call the craft beer capital of the world. Close to 300 in the whole county.
Wow.
And like you said, on every corner. any industrial park in San Diego County, you're going to find a brewery.
Probably three.
Yeah, or three. or like for our tap room, we're going to be a shared tap room with a couple other brands, and which that's kind of the new market. And I don't know about Cincinnati if they're going to go that route, but kind of what's going on is, after COVID, a lot of companies have either closed and or consolidated, and what you're seeing is a big push of partnerships, like what we're doing. We're contract brewing, and eventually what's going to be called an alternating proprietorship, where 3 different breweries are going to be under one house. So it's going to be 3 different beer brands in one tap room, where you're going to see, like, you walk in and you've got 3 bars to go to and all different styles of beer. And I think it's going to be really cool. And that's starting to pop up right now because of COVID. I know Cincinnati popped up. We actually, bringing up history, a long time ago on the podcast, I think within our first year, and I want to say, first few episodes, I'll have to look back. I think it was like the birthday episode, like in our first year. My brother visited Cincinnati because he's got his wife's family back in somewhere like in that area that's like Wisconsin and Ohio border kind of thing. But he was down in Cincinnati and he brought back a bunch of beer from Cincinnati. And I can't remember all of them, but I do remember Rheingeist, which is a big brewery. And we had a really good like Scottish ale and different things that he had brought me. But I know Cincinnati is popping off as far as the beer industry goes. I hear a lot of it. A lot of the breweries that have entered in a lot of the contests have won some medals. Mm-hmm. It's a big city. I kind of call them like craft beer, like hotbeds. And Cincinnati's one of them. That you got to like pay attention into the industry, where they're kind of popping off, because before there wasn't as many. And now it's like, hey, people like this in Cincinnati. So now you're starting to see them pop up everywhere there. Another city that's similar is Miami. You would think it's a big city, but there's only like 20 breweries in Miami. But then all of a sudden, that was 20 breweries like a couple of years ago. Now there's like 45 breweries, and it's like really starting to pick up. And that's probably what you're seeing there in Cincinnati as well.
Well, but on the Miami point, like Miami, there's a lot of prestige in terms of the beers and the breweries in Miami. There's a lot of hype out there, but at least from my perspective, to answer your question, Phil, I'm out in the Los Angeles area. I'm not like in Los Angeles proper, but like I'm in the county. Definitely over the past like 5 to 8 years, I've seen a lot of little tiny breweries pop up, but the ones that have been able to sustain are the ones that have diversified in terms of not just offering beer, but finding other ways to facilitate to their customers, whether it's offering like a restaurant, like building out a kitchen and offering the restaurant, or getting, Justin, you mentioned earlier, getting into like distilling, a variety of different spirits. All different kinds of avenues. Like it can't just be beer. You have to find
like in Cincinnati, you've got, I think there's like 5 major ones in Cincinnati. Like you've got Rheingeist, you've got Fretboard, what was the other one? 50 West, Mad Tree. I think there's 2 other ones, but they've got massive distilleries, massive, spaces to do event centers, I guess is the best word to say. But then there's all the micro ones in it, underneath those, and they're bringing back a lot of the older distilleries or breweries that were there, that they're converting old buildings back and, bringing back history into it too. And it's just, like I said, it seems like on every street corner you're seeing 4 or 5 distilleries pop up.
So guys, I think, again, I'll play a little bit in I'm not trying to plug the bar book too much, but I love the conversation as we go
plug
through
it all you want. That's what we're here for.
No.
Yes, sir. Please do.
But I sit here and I go, one of the things that I've seen with Virginia in the beer, in the distilleries and the breweries and the whole thing, is the marketability, right? The ability to reach a client base outside of their little tiny small town. And some of that comes from, can they ship, and can they get again, prohibition laws really suck when it comes to that kind of stuff, because I don't know if it's that way in California, but in Virginia, and I can just speak for this pretty clearly, is a brewery must sell to a distributor, and then a distributor must sell to a store. So it can't be that we sell from, hey, I make a can and then I sell it to your store. Anyway, that's in Virginia. So you've got all these different brands that have to go through this rigmarole of, stuff to get out there. So getting the knowledge of this brand's existence is problem one. And then getting people to try that brand is a whole nother makeup set, because I'm not spending $10 or average price is $11.99 for a 6-pack or 4-pack, depending on ABV. But it's $11.99 for a 4-pack of your beer from your brewery. If I don't even know if you're any good, it's different. So tap room experiences are one thing, right? I show up in your tap room, I try your beer. I'm going to try your flight. I'm going to try everything on your flight, and then after I try your flight, I'm probably going to have 2 or 3 beers that I like, and then I'm going to remember it. But even then, I may only drink it if I'm back in your tap room.
Yeah.
We need to expand this to the point of that tap room who is in, and I'm going to use Virginia as an example. California may have the same issues, but it means they're in the rural western southwestern portion of Virginia, where we don't get a whole lot of 95 traffic and DC traffic and Beltway, whatever. So they're back there, got it. They make great beer and they distribute 100 miles in every direction, but they don't reach Washington, DC. So your big market center in Washington, D.C. doesn't know about this beer, doesn't try this beer, doesn't do anything with this beer. And you've got a population of, let's say, 250,000 people. And of that, 20,000 like beer. You're smart, and you're going to basically blow yourself out of the competition, because you're just not going to be there. And eventually people are going to be like, all right, I'm going to go to, BeerDad's beer because it's on every shelf everywhere I go, and they've got this great advertising budget and they can afford it. And you know what? I liked your beer. It was great. I remember that one time, it was awesome. But BeerDad is right here in Kroger or Wegmans or whatever your grocery store is, and they're right here, and I'm just going to pick that up. Yeah. So the beauty of the bar book is I get to introduce you to those things that are out there that you may not even know about, that, kind of open that take that local market and make it digital, based off the flavors you like. And that's what we're trying to do. And I hate to see a brewery, a distillery, a small business owner, veteran owned business, first responder business go under because they can't afford $1 billion of marketing space. And the big dogs are waiting you out, right? Like, Budweiser, Buffalo Trace, you pick your brand. I don't care. I'm not picking on either one of those. I love them both because I'll drink them all day long, but they've got money to wait you out.
Oh, so, yeah.
But, I'm sorry, but Bud Light doesn't make a pineapple double IPA.
No, they do not. That's right. Yeah. And that's kind of what, I love about the craft beer industry. I've always been, ever since we launched this show, like our focus has been support the industry, support the small businesses, feature them, give them a platform. And there's a million, craft beer podcasts out there. Well, I don't know about a million because, we are kind of a niche market, but there's several craft beer podcasts out there. And we launched in 2019, and it was more like so I obviously I mentioned the Brews Traveler, and that's kind of where I got my idea, but I wanted to be different than the other craft beer podcasts. I wanted to be more personable and more no format. Like sometimes you listen to the craft beer podcasts, no knock on them, but they have this like extreme fit format. This is what we're going to talk about on this segment, and this is what we're going to do on this segment. And for me, it was like, let's just get people together. Let's spotlight small businesses and breweries and tap rooms and stuff like that, and give them a platform to talk about their product, but also be normal, be human. So people can hear like, hey, I'm talking to Mike and Phil from the Bar Book. You know what I mean? Like, we're
No,
not
I love
like,
it.
I'm going to ask, like, I don't have a list of questions that I'm going to ask, like I'm
Yeah.
just sitting here drinking beer with my buddies and we're talking about your company, and that's,
Which is great because
yeah.
we're talking about everything with our buddies. And so I have a video that I do with four army buddies. We don't post it. We don't do any of that, but
Yeah.
we do a video chat once a month with four army guys that's similar to this format. It looks a lot like what we're doing right now.
Yeah.
Literally, it's four dudes that one's in Washington State, one's in Texas, one's in North Carolina, one's in Virginia. And we were brothers through a whole lot of crappy stuff through our careers. And we just get on camera and talk just like this. And I love your format. I absolutely do. So keep it up, keep doing what you're doing because it's awesome. And
Thank you.
I can't wait to sip some of your beer, by the way.
Oh yeah, no, I'll
Yeah,
definitely
man.
get you some. Yeah, I love the format of our show. Been doing it a long time. It's weird. Like I look back and I'm like, man, 2019, like it's been, going on 5 years. 5-year anniversary will be this August, and we've done a lot. I've been through 3 co-hosts, and it's not like it's a revolving door. Obviously, my first co-host, Joshua, he passed away because of a car accident, and then we actually had another Brandon who was on the show, who was a good friend of both Joshua and I, and homebrewer, and then he decided he wanted to be Mr. College and go back to get his master's degree. So obviously he didn't have the time to put into it. And then of course now we have Mr. Sir Brandon from Agora Hills here, who is a good friend of mine and actually came on the show. He was a fan of the show, and when I put out I need a new co-host, here he is. And it's been going really, really well. So
Justin, I have you brought up a topic just right now. I've got to ask the question because, all right, full disclosure, I have a speaking event in Virginia in let's say 4 weeks, roughly, right? And I'm speaking to a group of a collective home brewers group in southern part of Virginia.
okay.
So one of the things I'm talking to them about is obviously the bar book and whatever. But as we're talking to the bar, to one of the members of the group, he goes, "Hey man, have you ever thought about opening up your aperture to include home brewers?" Right? Like you've talked about including breweries, but what about home brewers? So I went through I was like, dude, I love the idea. I'm 100% stoked about supporting anybody that wants to get into this space. And if that helps you open a door, I'm in. I said, but talk to me about the idea of how do I share that with other people when you make a different beer every week, right?
Yeah.
Or have different flavors. So home brewer, right? Talk about home brewer. My Philip here was a home brewer. Talk to me a little bit about home brewers. And like, do you think if I were to, again, this would take future development. This is not tomorrow. This is not, the next day. But if future development came up to where we created a venue for home brewers to share recipes, showcase their recipes, and maybe it leads them to building a distillery, or I'm sorry, a brewery, right?
Yeah.
Maybe it leads them to that path. Like, gosh, this guy has done so many great beers. He should own a brewery. Maybe it leads them. Do you think there's a potential client base or marketplace? And I don't mean client base like I need to charge you a lot of money, because that's not where I'm at. But do you think there's a potential client base to talk to those people and open them up to building or posting their flavors, their ideas or something? I don't even know what that would look like yet on the bar book and how that would work. Again, this is full disclosure podcast, whatever this is, totally pre-decisional, no posting or development.
It's a brainstorming meeting.
Right, it's a brainstorming, but I love the idea of the home brewer concept.
It's definitely a market, and I can tell you that there's an app out there called the Beersmith app, and it's not necessarily anywhere near what you guys are doing, but I definitely think that could be a thing. Home brewing is huge. It really is. I love home brewing. I can tell you that. And we'll talk a little bit about it, but and because you were in the military, but military first responders, kind of the same cloth. Obviously, you guys go through a lot more than we do, but we see our fair share of shit too.
Yes, you do.
But
so full disclosure, I'll pause you right there. So Philip's not military, but he's doing his own thing, making his business go. I joined the military 17, straight out of high school, went and did my thing. Our sister is a police officer, first responder, obviously, and her husband is a police officer, first responder. And our sister, before she became a police officer, was an EMT, right? So it's in our blood, it's in our family, it's in our DNA. This guy just chose to do the business avenue.
He got smart.
It's smart of us. We decided that we were going to go do dumb stuff first and then get into business. He was like, I'm going to go do business because you're going to come.
Now I do dumb stuff.
There you go. Including sipping on bourbon right now.
Yeah.
That's not dumb.
That's smart.
I love first responder stuff.
Yeah. So my thing for me is I say this, and I haven't said it a lot on the podcast, but I tell people this. Home brewing and this podcast, I think, has saved my life. I really do. I've seen some shit, I've heard some shit, and we just leave it at that. We know what first responders go through, and
sure.
And like right now with teaching classes and training new people is, you really have to emphasize the fact that you have to have an outlet. You have to have something that you can come back to. And when Joshua, God bless you, brother. He's a huge part of this show, but he taught me how to home brew, and that's one of the most relaxing things I've ever done in my life, as far as brewing a beer. And it really did. And this show is a huge outlet for me because I get to meet amazing people. I get to talk about things that I'm very passionate about, and hear amazing stories from all walks of life. And it's one of those things where I tell people, I said, listen, it might not be for everybody, but for somebody that has like any kind of like background where they enjoy science, they enjoy cooking, they enjoy beverages, and obviously like to drink, that brewing is a huge outlet. And I think that home brewing, it really did. It was when Josh taught me how to brew, I was just like, I got hooked really, really fast. And I was like, this is my thing, and I had,
there's a community.
It's huge. Absolutely huge.
There's a community, a brotherhood, if you will, that comes along with that.
Home brewers are just Josh, I used to call him MacGyver, and it's unfortunate that he passed away because he was just about to go pro, and he had many accolades, several awards. He was president of his homebrew club in Coachella Valley, and he's just an amazing human being and taken away from our world way, way, way too soon. But like, when he showed me like the process, like, I mean, and Phil, like when you brew a beer, it's like, okay, you obviously come up with like, hey, what am I going to brew? So you build your recipe and stuff like that, but you grind your grain, you mash in and you get it going, and then you boil, and it's a whole process, got a couple hours here, a couple hours here, drink in between, talk, reminisce, enjoy. Or for me, if you did it solo, you're relaxing, you're chilling, you're sipping on something, and it gets your mind off of things. And I think it was an amazing remedy. And I've always thought like, man, how great would it be? Like, I don't know, maybe one day I'll do something like this, but to have like a homebrew class for first responders and military veterans, like, here, I'm going to give you this tool. This is an amazing outlet. It helped me. Maybe it helps you. But it's just to me, it was relaxing. And then if you have like any kind of like, if you're a science nerd, you can get into it with like the yeast strains and all the different grain bills and flavor profiles and all that kind of stuff. Like there's so much into it.
Both our boys are science nerds.
There you go.
So 100%. And, you can quote me on this later, but you do that. You take, BeerDad, and you make BrewWorks, and you do a home brewer class or whatever, and you need a sponsor for fucking, first responders, military, whatever, playing your game. I'm in. Like, just
awesome.
Just tell me I'm in. Because I love the concept, right? Absolutely love it. There's two things veterans love: something to do and something to drink. And I'm just going to tell you that is awesome. So you give them something to do and something to drink, and they're in.
Yeah.
So
absolutely. And the cool thing is beer, home brewing, craft beer, all of it. And this is what's really cool about it is, our country right now, has been for probably the last decade is like super divided. Like everybody's like, if you're blue or red, you can't agree, you can't be friends, you can't talk, you can't do this. And I'm like, let me tell you something, because my original co-host Joshua and I, we were polar opposites, right?
Yeah.
He was, and not to say that I'm super conservative, but I lean more on the conservative side, and then Josh was super like on not to say he's super liberal, but we had different ideals when it came to the political spectrum. We had different ideals when it came to different acts that were getting passed and stuff like that. But what we always had in common was the beer part and home brewing and our passion for the industry and all that. And him and I were best friends. And and that's how it used to be. If you guys can remember, like I can remember, because I'm old as hell now, right? I'm in my 40s, but
absolutely,
I can remember
have a difference of opinion, and
it was okay. You could be a Democrat, a Republican, an independent. Didn't matter.
Your mouth. You are not old in your 40s.
I feel old every morning when it gets cold and that little creak in your knee goes,
Well, he does look like ZZ Top, so
Thankfully, there's no gray. It's hard to tell on the camera, but I'm still. I haven't gone gray yet.
The problem I got is when I start to grow mine out, there's some gray patches, and so she gets upset with that. She's like, "You're going gray." I'm like, "No, they're blonde."
But well, it doesn't help for married men, but the ladies like that salt and pepper look. My brother, he was all, because so my brother, he's not my blood brother, but we're brothers.
Sure.
We grew up together and were raised together. He went gray at like 25, 26, somewhere around there, and he complained about it at first until he realized the women were like all over him. He was like that salt and pepper dad look, and like he was like, and then he kind of embraced it for a little bit. Now he's got his beard, and he embraced it. Now for some reason it hasn't hit me yet. I guess my dad's genes are, what is he? He'll be 70 this year. I think he's 76 or 77 in November, and he has like literally like 2 strands of gray in his sideburns. So I got that. So we'll see how that goes.
I don't mind the gray as long as the balding stays off. I'm good.
Right? Yeah. No, we haven't had that happen yet. I know Brandon's like, oh, let's not talk about that right now.
Yeah. That's the tougher. That's the tough one.
Yeah. I mean, it's crazy when you talk about that. Like my brother-in-law, my wife's brother, he went bald at like 17. He started.
So we had and I'm not, they'll promote things that I don't.
We won't use his real name.
Yeah. But there was a guy when we were younger of age, probably before graduation of, standard school, aka high school. He was going bald, and we had those things. So we would mess his hair up and put him in a dirty work shirt, and he'd pass for 35 every day of the week.
There you go.
Send him straight to the liquor store.
Send him straight into the store, and nobody would even look at him. And he was 17 years old.
Right. Yeah, we Matt, my brother-in-law, great dude. He listens to the show. We contribute. So he played baseball, hardcore, travel ball, high school ball, like all that kind of stuff. And he ended up going to UCLA. And ball caps and the catcher's helmet.
Because I've got a daughter who wants to go to UCLA, and she's
don't do it.
Don't say that, because she is like, I gotta go to UCLA, and I don't know why, other than she wants to go to UCLA.
Yeah,
that's the only reason Lily wanted to go to Butler.
Well, I love my brother-in-law. Matt's a great dude, but he went there to play baseball and be a doctor, and then all of a sudden he came out, no baseball and a preacher. So I was like, okay, I guess UCLA just changes everything that you want to do when you get there.
But I'm okay with that, because mine wants to go in and be a vegetarian and influencer. So if she goes in and she changes that and she comes out a doctor and a meat eater,
there you go. Okay. I love it. Hey, but you know what? If she does go there, you got a lot of cool breweries and distilleries to visit in the Los Angeles area. 100%.
Sure. I work with a lot of UCLA grads, just, living in the area. I work with a lot of UCLA grads, interact with them, like great people, man. All jokes aside, like it's a great institution.
She is 13 years.
Putting that out there.
She's 13 years old. So let's put this in perspective.
Okay, she's got a little time. All right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she's got time,
Right.
and making up her mind as a 13-year-old girl is not high on the priority list.
Right.
Okay.
And let me put it in again. I'll put it in perspective. She wants to go to UCLA,
Mhm.
Harvard, or Michigan.
3 totally different schools.
Exactly.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
My
have nothing in common.
yeah.
Right.
My daughter, she's kind of all over the spectrum too. So she's 15. She'll actually, so she skipped a grade. So she graduates at 16. So she's a junior now. She'll be a senior next year.
Good for her. Way to go.
She's hardcore into volleyball. And out of nowhere, she got into swim. She just made the varsity swim team, and she's
Good for
doing
her.
swim meets now. But
Swim's hard.
yeah, yeah, that's the crazy thing. Like, what really surprised me is because we never gave her any swim lessons. I built a pool when she was 2, and that was it. She learned how to swim, and I just went to her first swim meet the other day. It was like a unsanctioned CIF swim meet, and for someone that's never been swim lessons or anything like that, she placed like 3rd and 4th out of 6 on like every single event. And I was like, she was mad because she's super competitive, but I was like, babe, like, we never sent you to swim lessons. You never did club swim. You never did any of that stuff. For you to do that, that's pretty.
My
awesome.
my older son, he played soccer since he was in 1st grade.
Yeah.
Soccer all the way up through grade school into high school.
Yeah.
Got into high school, signed up for swim because his buddies wanted him to do something in the off season, and he's like, "This is hard. This is really hard.
It
like,
is
a whole different animal."
She made me tired watching. I was like, holy cow. And I'm used to volleyball because she's been doing that since 4th grade, and she's amazing, does travel volleyball. In fact, March we'll be going to Vegas for her tournament. And I'm used to that, but swim's a whole nother animal. And I watch her and I'm like, man, I got tired just watching that.
So Northern Virginia is different in that regard. It's probably, I mean, California's probably got some similarities in that regard, but Northern Virginia, just outside of DC, right? There is a swim club that is, like Junior Olympics style. Yeah. Like, we're there. We signed our kids up for swim club because it happens over the summer. They're in the pool every day, and it's cheaper than a camp or club or anything else. So we put them in the swim club because they get physical activity, they get to do the things, and you know what? Kids love being in a pool.
Right.
So that's why we put them in swim club. But there are other ones in this area that, like you talking about, super competitive. Man, holy cow.
Yeah.
Holy cow. The competitive nature for swim club. Like, my son is a football nerd, and he is ready to, like, he is 12 years old and has planned out that he will graduate from West Springfield High School in Northern Virginia, and he will transition to the University of Texas and be a Longhorn. And then he's going to play for the Indianapolis Colts. And like, he's 12 years old and has this figured out. And I'm like, buddy, if you get into college and get to play football at college, we're good. And he's like, no, Dad, I'm going to play here. Like, okay, got it. But like, that's, in his mind, he's 12. But for swim, it's the parents and the coaches that have that long-term plan already for some of those kids. And I'm like, good for you.
Right.
Because I just want them to get active.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's my thing.
I love her swimming. Yeah, I love her swimming, but like, it was a surprise to us that she tried out for the team and made varsity, and we're like, we didn't know you wanted to do that. But one of her best friends was like a swimmer, and she was like, hey, do this with me because you're not doing anything.
That's where my son was at. He was like, he had his group of friends, and they were like, yeah, we're all on the swim team. You should do it too. And he's like, all right, well, I'm going to go hang out with these guys.
Yeah. I don't think she was expecting to make the varsity team, but she did. And just, kind of crazy. And now I'm like, oh, well, I was a volleyball dad, and I guess now I'm a swim dad. But yeah,
swim meets are tough.
Crazy.
That is an all-day event where you're just sitting there like, okay, I'm here for 12 hours for 2 15-minute races.
Right. Yeah, she has a swim meet tomorrow. It's her first official swim meet. It's a invitational, so it's at another high school. And I'm just like, all right, here we go.
Hey, so good for her. Good for her. We're cheering her on.
Yeah,
we'll see how that goes. Yeah, but as far as her college choices, like, she's all over the place too. She she really wants to, like, I think her number one choice is Tennessee State. And the reason for that is she likes the volleyball program there, but also she wants to do sports medicine because she's into that right now in the high school, and they have a really good sports medicine program. And then I think her second choice is Boise State.
I've never heard of Tennessee State. I've heard of Tennessee,
Yeah.
but I didn't know there was a Tennessee State.
Yeah, Tennessee State. It's in, I believe, the Nashville area. So Tennessee's out in like kind of Knoxville-ish area.
Yeah, Knoxville.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so this one's in, and this is more focused on sports medicine, and that's where she wants to go.
So
and then,
good for her because Nashville's a great town, and
we love it there. We love it there.
Enjoy it.
So much fun.
Beautiful town.
Yeah, I mean, especially like my wife, she's hardcore country music fan, so like she goes there and like just like all the honky tonks and all that crazy stuff. She loved it. So I'm like, well, we could, if she goes there, maybe we move there. Who knows? But
somebody's bachelor party was there.
Yeah.
Okay. A little time on the Broadway Strip there.
Yes, that's the Broadway Strip was a lot of fun.
Yeah, actually, if you hit the Broadway Strip just off Broadway, Billy Idol has a honky tonk there. And there may or may not be BeerDad's Brewworks stickers plastered all over that place.
Nice.
May not be the Waskowicz bachelor party engraved in the Orchid Lounge upstairs.
Nice. Oh yeah. Yeah. So we just went. We just went there recently. We did. It was my brother and I and my dad. We did like kind of like a father-son trip, and we went to Nashville in Kentucky, and we went to that bar, and my brother just put my sticker all over the damn place, like poles, the front door, the bathroom, all over the place. And it was cool. I got some I got some shots of the Dad Bod beer there on Broadway, and we went to Kid Rock's bar, and we got some up on the top sky deck up there. We got some pictures of the Dad Bod beer. I snuck it in. And I took pictures. It was funny. The bartender or not bartender, but the waiter came over to take our order for some beers, and he saw the Dad Bod beer on the thing, and he was like, "Did we get a new beer that I didn't know about?" I was like, "No, I snuck this in. I own the brewery."
Yes.
And he was like, "Oh, you're good. You're good. Take your pictures. It's all good." I was like, "Man, I wish I had it," because it was just an empty can. I was like, "I wish I had some. I'd give it to you." But it was at the time, so we were there like during the Bud Light controversy, and so there was no Bud Light in Kid Rock's bar.
Oh, of course.
And so I was like, this would be a perfect opportunity to sell some Dad Bod beer right now.
I love it.
But
so we went, I was still in the military. It was his wedding bachelor party.
2010.
Yeah, and so I called every bar I could call. Love Nashville because huge military supporters. Huge, fans of everything.
Yeah.
And so I called them and I was like, hey guys, look, seriously, every bar I could get a hold of. I said, I'm coming in town. I'm military. I'm not from there. I'm stationed over here. I just need to show up, and I need to show my brother a great time for his bachelor party. And they're like, bachelor party, military, got you. Just say your name at the front door and everything, like the world is your oyster. And I'm like, sweet. So I had like 6 bars that, to include one of the, adult bars that, had my name, and it didn't matter. We walked in. Of course, he said he didn't want to go to those places, but whatever. So
you have to for your bachelor party.
Yeah, that's
we mandatory.
We did not. I went without him later. But anyway, so all those places had my name at the front of the bar. And it's like, if you walked up to the bouncer and you said, Mike told us to come here, they were like, oh, Mike, yeah, got you. And they let you in. To the point where we were backstage passes, special balconies, all these it was fantastic. To the point where my cousin, who was just playing this to the extreme, was starting to show up at bars that I didn't call and was like, hey, Mike said it was cool. Yeah. And they were letting him in. And I was like, dude, I didn't call that bar. And he's like, whatever, I'm in here. Like, oh my God. So Nashville is a great town.
Yeah.
Good for her for that choice. Yeah. And we should meet there. We should actually do that.
There you go.
I would love
that'd
that.
be amazing.
I have no qualms with that. Tons of amazing breweries and amazing distilleries all in the same area. Like
Yes.
So that's why we planned that trip. It was like, okay, there was breweries I wanted to go to. Just to shout out a few, Southern Grist Brewing, is probably my favorite. Barrique is another one if you're into like wild fermentation and weird nerdy beer stuff. Like they do wild
Sure.
fermentation sours.
Yeah. No, I love it.
My
And then
favorite, I got a shout out one, Smith and Lens.
Smith and Lens, that's another good one. Yeah. Tailgate Brewing is another good one.
Yeah, Tailgate is cool.
And Monday Night, which is based out of Atlanta. Whoever decided to buy that property that they got, it's an old meat packing plant that was like from the 20s or 30s. So it's a brick building and they like knocked out walls and did all this crazy stuff. It's the coolest brewery I've ever been to. In fact, if you guys
that
watch,
seems like the go-to nowadays. It's like you've got an old building and it's like this was some historical building.
Yeah.
Gut it, make it a distillery. It's gonna work.
Yeah. So this place is right on the river there in Nashville, and the way they designed it was so cool. In fact, when we went there, the bartender was like, "Yeah, dude, like when the fog rolls in, the fog creeps through the holes that we knocked out in the brick building, and like there's this outdoor venue that's so cool. It looks like awesome. London." And in fact, they just did the what was it, the Country Music Awards or something recently, and they actually had they were playing there, and I was like, holy shit, it's Monday Night Brewing. I recognize that place because their outdoor like beer garden is just like spectacular. My brother and I were there by ourselves in the beer garden, and we're just like, this is like, I'm thinking of concerts, I'm thinking of beer fest, I'm like, this is a cool venue.
Well, so when
check
you
that
do
place
yours out. When you do yours, you're going to have to, think the same thing. I mean,
right.
One of the things that I've seen in a lot of these breweries and distilleries, they've got the venue, they've got obviously they've got the space to host your event, and, they do the trivia nights and they do the game nights and they do whatever, but you've got to do something that keeps people coming back. And, live music does that.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. I've looked at all the options to keep people to come back and keep them to stay. That's the biggest thing, is like, you don't want them to leave. You want them to stay, drink, and have food and different things. So 100%. But yeah, we had a good time in Nashville.
One of the trickiest things though, in terms of live music, at least that I've witnessed out here, I travel a lot out to Santa Barbara County, to a city called Carpinteria. I have some family over there. There's a brewery over there. It's called Island Brewing Company. And they're right on the beach. It's like one of the most incredible like brewery locations I've ever seen, man. Like, it's crazy. Like, it's like probably 20 feet from the beach. Like, it's crazy. Anyway,
they have a show there.
Yeah. We totally.
You know what? You totally should. Shorts, flip-flops.
Yeah, exactly. They have live music every Thursday, Friday, and Saturday night.
Yeah.
And the sound travels like all throughout the city because it's a small city and a lot of people like to come out there and camp. They have like this really cool like part of the beach that's kind of just allotted for campers or RVs. You can be there in a tent, RV, whatever. And they've got a lot of complaints from people that like travel out there, that the music is too loud and it's like disturbing their, camping situation and whatnot. And it's been like this big drama, and it's like affected other breweries in the area too. Cause like other breweries were having music. Island, this place I'm talking about, they were kind of like the first ones to kind of start this, live music every night or on weekend nights movement. And, it's kind of shitty to see, but I understand it to an extent. Like, I guess if I lived out there and it was like, all right, if I lived close by or if I was camping, it was like almost every night you're hearing like loud music.
But you know what? You know what? Fuck it. Get over it. Because at the end of the day, you've got basically a radio playing for you live music. And, people that are complaining probably just don't like the music. And you know what? Whatever. I love all genres of music. So, Dolly will crack me up because she will make fun of me for knowing all the lyrics to a Tupac song, right? Like, we can go all day long and I can rattle off.
You like the West Coast, do you?
I'll tell you what, I do. When it comes to that, I'm a Tupac, not a Biggie.
Nice.
But
Shots fired.
you're right.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you that right now. I'm going to tell you, yeah, I love it. But, at the same time that I could go all day on Tupac, I can do a Chris Stapleton song and know every words to that too. So she cracks up on me and that kind of stuff. But man, music is all over the place, and just enjoy it, have fun, and just embrace it, man. Like, come on, there's no reason to get upset because you hear music.
I'm a firm believer. If I can tap my foot to the music, I'll enjoy it.
Yeah.
If it's got a good beat, I don't care what genre it is.
100%. I'm the same way. I will listen to just about anything. And, I back in the day, I grew up, in San Diego, and West Coast rap was like my biggest thing when I was a kid. So Tupac was big for me, Dre, Snoop, all that kind of stuff. And I wasn't really into country music until I met my wife. We've been married almost 20 years, and she's a huge country fan, and now I'm a big country fan. And everything in between. Metallica is one of my favorite rock bands or metal bands. Sometimes people get mad when you say Metallica is a metal band. They were originally, now and then they kind of went mainstream. But I like every type of music. I think other than like, I don't know, silly like love songs or something, I'm not really into, but I just love
music is that one thing. It's not, there's no genre that can define you. It's what's your mood towards, if you're feeling in a rap mood, if you're in a rock mood, if you're in a an alternative mood, there's no I'm only listening to this.
No, my playlist has Pearl Jam, Tupac, Chris Stapleton all in the same mix.
Oh, I got it.
It's great.
Oh yeah.
Tupac, Weird Al,
Yeah.
Oh, Weird Al. I love that. Throw that in there.
That's
perfect.
I'll tell you what, I road trip with my kids. That is the best thing to put on when you're road tripping with kids. Is just throw some Weird Al in there and you'll just enjoy it for hours.
Love it.
You guys ever see that movie that came out a couple years ago?
That was great. That was great with the Harry Potter actor.
Yeah, Daniel Radcliffe. Yeah.
It was actually really good.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
So fun trivia fact that's been mentioned on the podcast maybe once or twice. And it's usually Jose. I mentioned him, my medic partner back in the day.
Yeah.
Back in the day, prior to the beard and prior to the podcast and all that kind of stuff, when I was into music, I was in a cover band and I sang Green Day. We were like a Green Day cover band. So I was into that music for a little while. That didn't last very long.
Be sampled on the podcast later on. You're going to dub that in.
Yeah, send me a clip, Justin. We'll put it in there.
I'm pretty sure there's no clips that exist, but I mean, we played at like random places, little dive bars and stuff like that.
There's some sketchy cell phone video.
We'll dig it up.
Early 2000s.
It would have been I would say 2000. Let's see, before my wife and I got married is when we started. So like 2002, 2003, somewhere around there.
Recorded on a Razor or later.
Exactly, the LG chocolate. Remember that thing? Yeah, no, that lasted for a little while. So a good friend of mine, Joe, he was into music and played guitar, and he had a friend of his, and actually a couple friends of his, that they kind of did like gigging and stuff like that. And so I started playing the bass so that I could gig with them, and it ended up being like, well, he can sing too, and so we were like, oh, what are we singing? And it was like mostly like cover stuff, a couple original songs. And then it was like, all of a sudden we became this Green Day cover band, and it was like stupid. All of our ladies wanted nothing to do with it, and it didn't go very far, but we had fun. We had a little bit of fun,
Absolutely.
We walked that lonely road.
There he is. There he is.
Yeah.
It's only a matter of time.
That's right. Yeah. No, when I worked on the ambulance, Jose would always jack with me, and he'd pull up Green Day songs and be like, sing while we're driving code 3 to this call. And I was like, oh, geez.
BeerDad Joe Armstrong out over there.
Right? Yeah, it was really bad. It was a bad time in my life. But yeah, no, I love music.
I fully expect when the brewery is opened and you're going out there, you're going to be playing 90s alternative all day, and there will be a Green Day cover band.
It could be
in the corner.
It could be. And it's funny because I play that shit for my daughter all the time, and she's always like, Dad, this is terrible. And I'm like, but then I listen to her music, like, and we talk about rap. Oh my gosh, I can't do it. These
No.
mumble
So you
rappers
know
that
what?
rap
You know
about
what?
Xanax all day. I can't do it. I can't do it.
You,
Yeah.
you know what? The kids now, and I hate to sound like the old freaking fogey guy, but the the music, even, you go back to 90s, let's go rap. Let's just go
Yeah.
rap for just a brief second. You go Tupac and Biggie and Dre and even Snoop, and you go back to those guys into the 90s, rap when they were doing their thing. Those guys had a story to tell in their stuff versus the guys now that I don't even know what they say. And it's not that, oh, you're out of tune, you don't get it. No. I could hear everything those guys said
Yeah.
back in the 90s. And they had a story behind it. Like,
Yeah.
it was amazing to me that when California Love came out, that Tupac was able to walk out of jail, walk into a recording studio, and straight go off on one of, Dre's records and just boom, done, first take, it's done, and walk back out. And
Yeah.
if you were to do that with an artist today, they'd be like, where's my mixer? Where's my,
Auto-tune. I'm a rapper.
Yeah.
I can't do it.
There's a bit to say to that with YouTube and Instagram and stuff like that. There are groups of rap and hip hop artists nowadays that are solely independent. They're not affiliated with the labels, that are coming out with some genuine great music that has awesome lyrics, that is just, it's unique and it's different than whatever's been done. And the only reason that's holding them back is they're not attached to a label, because they're not following that mainstream blueprint.
Right.
And they're only going off of YouTube. And the only way they're getting publicized is YouTube, Instagram, TikTok.
YouTube's not going to work. It didn't work in the 90s, and it's not going to work.
Well, no, it's working for some of them.
I mean,
but they're getting there, and they're going fully independent.
Yeah, Suge Knight. I've watched the documentary. I know a little bit.
Yeah. Do you guys have you ever heard of Tom McDonald?
Yep. And you ever heard Dax?
Yeah, Dax. I love that song that went viral. Both of those dudes, like I listen to heavy, and they're independent artists, and
no,
like
Dax is actually I follow Dax.
So somebody sent me, actually, my buddy, the road trip guy, we were talking about him. He sent me a Dax video the other day. I forget the name of the song,
but Dax is 2 or 3 years going in just YouTube, and he's massive in Canada. Both actually, Tom and Dax are from Canada.
Right.
And they're both massive in Canada, and they just can't gain strength in the corporate media in the US, but they're doing amazing on YouTube and, TikTok and, Twitter.
Yeah, that Tom McDonald song that just released with Ben Shapiro went #1 on iTunes. That beat out like Cardi B and all these crazy, and like a lot of people are like, "Who the hell's this?" And I'm like, I know who it is.
They get no play in the U.S. because they're not part of the mainstream, corporate game, I guess to say.
Yeah, definitely crazy. It's insane. The music industry is so much different than it was. Like, what Mike was saying, like in the 90s, like all those songs hit hard, and like for us, like it's crazy. Like me being from the West Coast, I remember I was trained to not like East Coast rap. I didn't have a better appreciation for it until I was older. And it was like you grew up in San Diego, LA, or anywhere. It was like you could only like Tupac, and you can only like Dre and Snoop. You don't listen to P. Diddy or Puff Daddy at the time, and Notorious B.I.G. Can't listen to them. They're terrible. They're horrible. And then you got older, and you're like, wow,
these guys in southeastern Indiana, and you're not allowed to listen to either of them.
You're in the Midwest. Who's my Midwest rapper? Like, I gotta find one.
Right.
Eminem,
got like
Eminem, right? Detroit.
Jelly Roll that just ran through the CMAs, and he's more of a rapper than a country artist.
Yeah, but that's because he did stuff with Lainey.
With who?
Lainey Wilson.
Oh well, no, he was big before that.
Lainey Wilson, home of the dump truck.
Yes. Yes, heart like a
Yeah.
truck. Right.
Yeah, she's the argument with the wife. Yeah. She comes on
Yes, no,
stage
I
and like, I'm
understand.
mom really in. She's like, you're really into this music. I wonder why.
Yeah, it's good music. It's solid. It's built well.
Absolutely.
Yes. And then you watched Yellowstone.
Right. So real quick, I just wanted to talk about this last beer that I had before I crack into my whiskey here.
Yeah,
Liquid
you're a little late
Gravity.
on cracking in the whiskey.
Right. Yeah, you guys beat us. So this is Liquid Gravity. It's a IPA West Coast. We were talking about West Coast, so I thought I'd bring that up. So this is a brewery, I believe in
Let's take
Slow,
off.
right? Do you know where
All
Liquid
right.
Gravity is at, Brandon?
Next bathroom break.
There you go.
That's a good
Yeah,
point.
San Luis Obispo, Liquid Gravity. So really good, easy
yes.
drinking West Coast IPA. In fact, I think John, that was like his favorite IPA that we had when we were up in Slow, Santa Barbara area. Really, really good.
Damn. Wait, hold up. I gotta go too. Should we just pause for a second? I'm sorry.
You're gonna go to the bathroom. I'm gonna continue because I'm gonna start pouring my whiskey and
All
I'll
right,
talk
Yeah,
about it.
Brandon broke the seal already. He's
There you
went
go.
twice.
God damn. I'm sorry, guys. Hold
You're
on.
good.
You're
So-
good. You're good.
I for my whiskey, I know this is silly because it's gonna be a silly whiskey with what you see here, but for Christmas I got because I've been drinking a lot more whiskey these days. The wife got me a ice cube mold that does like the cubes, so I got an ice whiskey cube. So I'm gonna drop that in the glass there.
I'll tell you what, when you talk about whiskey, there is something that people just really don't account for enough is just the few drops of water
That's
will
it.
change it so
Yes.
much.
I'm glad you brought that up because I was talking about it earlier. So when I did the whiskey tasting on the Disney cruise about 6 years ago, and I had mentioned I didn't like Scottish whiskey because of the smokiness and stuff like that. The guy that was teaching us about the whiskeys throughout the world and stuff like that, I had told him that because when we got to Scottish whiskey, I was like, I haven't really found one that I really care for. I don't care for the cigarette taste. I'm not a fan of like drinking an ashtray. Because like
that peat taste.
Yeah, my wheelhouse when it comes to whiskey is usually like an Irish whiskey, or a Kentucky bourbon, right? Different style, right? But he taught me with Scottish whiskey, with certain Scottish whiskey blends, if you drink it room temperature and you drop some room temperature distilled water, and he said depending on the level of heat or smokiness, it will depend on how many drops of distilled water that you put in there. It will just balance it perfectly. And so we had some really hardcore smoked Scottish whiskey, and he gave us these little droppers to use with the distilled water, and we dropped like 3 or 4 drops. And then all of a sudden my mind was blown. I was like, holy shit, I do like Scottish whiskey. This is crazy. And most people don't get that experience, when it comes to like, they taste whiskeys and they're like, I don't like this. And so, and that's what I really think was really cool about your app is it's going to develop all these different flavor profiles and different things where it can actually, hopefully it'll recommend some of these things where like, hey, if you drink this whiskey, like drink it this way. Like maybe people, when they're check-ins, they'll talk about it and stuff like that. And for me, I was like, okay, I didn't like Scottish whiskey before, but when he taught me to drink it with the distilled room temperature water and drop it in there, all of a sudden I liked it. I was like, wow, this is actually enjoyable. And I can actually taste some of it, the smokiness, like balanced out. It's still there, but it's tolerable. And I really enjoyed it. So yeah, I think that's great.
That's the big thing with like what you were talking about is, where it recommends like, okay, add a little water in it and it changes what you like. But, I've done quite a few tastings at distilleries before. And the big thing that they always push, and I got to give credit to a distillery, is, a whiskey should be drank however you enjoy it. Nobody can tell you like, oh my gosh, why would you put ice cubes in that whiskey? It would destroy it. Like, no, do you enjoy it with a little bit of water? Then that's how it should be enjoyed.
100%.
There are people that say, oh, you can't add water to this. You got to drink it full strength or just a couple drops of water, no ice cubes. And it's like, no, whatever makes it taste good to you, that's how you need to drink it. And that's what, the bar book will do. It'll say, okay, on the personal level, when you go in and you're creating your personal profile on there, like, like where he said, it's the Spotify. of whiskey or of spirits and beer. It's like, okay, this is my profile. I think that this tastes great. This has this notes when I do this to it. And I think that maybe you'll like it this way too. And this is just my recommendation. And, and other people's recommendations will be in there as well. And like, if you're two people that say, hey, I like my Pappy Van Winkle 25 year with water. Well, okay. That's the way people like it.
Yeah.
And it's however you like it. And
I would cringe if somebody was to tell me that
I'm not. That was an extreme example.
They love their $1,500 bottle of bourbon with Coke.
Yeah, well, but
what mixes with Coke? And so I have those friends, and I love them, and they're great people. But if I'm doing a bourbon, tasting with friends, and somebody comes over to the house and they're like, "Oh, this is good bourbon. Like, you got a Coke?" I'd be like, you know what? Let me go get Jack Daniels, and I'm going to give it to you, and you go sit in the corner.
My one personal pet peeve is when, I know a lot of people do it, and everybody does it, and that's fine. I even have a couple myself that I beat myself up over, is when you buy a bottle of whiskey and you're like, I'm just going to save this bottle of whiskey. I'm going to crack it open. I'm going to take one drink and I'm going to set it on the shelf. And so, you know what? Once you crack that bottle, it's meant to be drank. Mm-hmm. It's maybe a year is what you're going to get out of that bottle. After that, you're not doing that whiskey any favor. You're not doing yourself any favors.
Drink it.
If you crack that bottle, enjoy it. Drink it just like it was a $20 bottle, whether it was a $100 bottle.
So
enjoy it. That's what it's meant for.
What I will tell you is so my wife tells this story. She was she's former military as well, right? So when she was stationed overseas and in a very high profile type environment, and she dealt with a lot of people from different countries. So
yeah,
and she was dealing with people from the Canadian military. They were talking a lot about different whiskeys and bourbons and tequilas and things. And they used to do these tastings with each other while they were, overseas doing stuff. Anyway, so she said that their mentality is so different than the U.S. because they thought this American mentality of buying a bottle and keeping it was just weird. Because she was like, no, you're keeping a bottle for a quote unquote special occasion. And she's like, they would always say, what the hell's the special occasion? You're alive. Today is a great day. You may not be here tomorrow. Today is the special occasion.
Absolutely.
Enjoy what you have and stop waiting for this, abstract day in the future that may or may not come. And so enjoy it. Right. And so she's kind of, pushed that into our lifestyle, as her and I have, been together and married and doing all the things we do. And yeah, I look at things the same way. We have some great bottles. I do, confessing I have some bottles on the shelves that are collector's bottles, but they're not. So I have no bottles that are collector's bottles that are, oh my gosh, this vintage from whenever. No, the bottles that I have collectors are autographed. Somebody from a distillery autographed a bottle. But if they did that, that means that I bought two and I saved the one because it was autographed and it was cool and it looks great on a shelf, but I drank the other one.
Yeah, that was like my bottles of Lagavulin. I bought two bottles. They were the guy from The Office. What's his name?
White?
No, not The Office. Sorry, Parks and Rec.
I didn't watch that show.
Nick Offerman?
Yeah, Overman.
Offerman, yeah.
Yeah, he did a release of Lagavulin.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, and I found they were in my local liquor store. So I bought two and I was going to drink one and I saved one. And I was like, I drank one glass out of it. I was like, I hate this.
Oh, no.
So the open bottle I ended up giving to a friend that actually loves it, but I kept the unopened one. But it was like, I'll never drink it. It's just for
I mean, I've got a couple bottles of, military brands that people have done and they've autographed. I kept them.
But I'd never, I mean, I'll buy a bottle, but I won't necessarily hoard it just
Right.
for the sake of the brand.
You want to drink it.
What I mean? Yeah. If I
Right.
buy something that's like, oh, this is a great bourbon, I'm going to drink it because that's what it's meant to be done. It's meant to be drank.
For beer, I've got this 120 IPA, right? I've got this. I have 2 bottles of this saved at home that, on my 1-year anniversary, my wife and I are going to crack and we're going to drink those 2 bottles. That's it. That's the occasion.
Yeah.
But any other time I find, just like this weekend, I find 120 IPAs, I'm cracking them and drinking them. I got it. They're special bottles. They're hard to find. They're all these things, but hell, Philip and I have never had them. So today's occasion.
I don't know who said the quote. I've heard it before. It's not the bottle is for the special occasion. The special occasion is when you drink the bottle.
Right.
And that's I've taken that to heart. Like, you know what? You're not saving the bottle for something. It's when you crack that bottle, that is the occasion.
Right. I have, so liquor wise, I have 2 unopened bottles that I have sealed. One is a distiller's edition Jameson whiskey bottle that came from the distillery in Dublin that one of my old bosses brought back for me. And I originally was going to open it to celebrate the birth of my son. And for whatever reason, I never did. And it stayed sealed and now it's sitting in storage. And I haven't opened it. And it's just more like a sentimental thing because Jameson was like my everyday drinking whiskey when I first got into whiskey. I love drinking it straight on the rocks or even if I'm going to mix it with ginger ale. But I was like, it's sealed already. I'll just leave it sealed. Maybe one day I'll crack it open. But yeah. And then the other one is something that I got from my grandma before she passed. We went and cleaned out her apartment and my grandma was not a drinker, not even close, but she went to Jamaica. Like, I don't know, this was probably in the 80s and she bought a bottle of rum and I can't even remember what brand it is, but it's literally like a Jamaican dude with a hat. Like it's his body. And like, she had that sitting on her counter for many, many years. And I remember when we went and cleaned out her apartment before she went into assisted living, my uncle was like, do you want this? And I was like, is there actually rum in there? And he's like, yeah, it's never been open. Grandma never, his mom never drank. And so I'm like, what? And I picked it up and it was like unsealed, still intact. And it's just like a dude's body with a hat. Like he's like a sugarcane farmer.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, cool. I'll keep it. And just for me, like, I'm not much of a rum drinker. Usually rum's more something I used for like mixed drinks to like make my wife like tropical drinks and different things. I do appreciate different styles of rum. But I'm just not a big rum drinker. And so like, I'm probably never going to open it. And obviously it means something because it was my grandma's. And I always thought it was funny that for the longest time, I thought it was just a empty bottle, but she liked the design of it. And it was in her kitchen up on a shelf. And I was like, okay, it means something. And I'm like, wow, it's unsealed, like, or it's sealed. It's never been opened. And I'm like, oh, this is pretty cool.
Funny story about unopened bottles is at my grandma's house, she used to have unopened bottles of wine and champagne. And at our dad used to have a beer collection with a lot of unopened bottles from around the world. And he always saved it. And the funny thing is my grandma had these few bottles, and my cousin lived with my grandma. And when she passed, we were going through these bottles, and we were looking at the bottles like we thought these were unopened. Mm-hmm. And it turns out they were opened and then resealed to where my cousin had drank them and then resealed them and put them back on the shelf.
Oh no!
So, but the other half of that is, our dad used to have a beer collection from around the world. Him and his brothers used to collect all different types of beers from their travels. And I was going through it a couple of years past. I was, resealing stuff, making sure it was all packaged good for storage. And a lot of these bottles looked like the seals weren't quite right, or they had mold inside the bottles, or they were like half full.
Yeah.
And it turns out, my older brother had got into the collection when he was a teenager and sampled a lot of these beers and recapped them and stuck them back in the collection.
None of this has
And
ever happened.
I'm sure it's surprising that
Pleading
he's
the
still
fifth.
alive, because these bottles were probably 20 years old when he drank them.
Yeah.
Yes. I plead the fifth in all of these charges.
Yeah.
Yes. I don't know what he's
So
saying.
there's a lot of those old collectible bottles that are probably full of water.
That reminds me of my daughter, my oldest, the one that we were talking about earlier. We got some really amazing apple cider from apple orchards that are close to us that we go to like the fall and the winter. And the apple cider is like $18 for a gallon, but it's like you drink it and you're like, oh my God, this is so good. She was like chugging this stuff. We usually buy it and it will last for a long time. You pour a little bit and it's really intense, like apple cider flavor, but it's fresh. Mm-hmm. It's obviously made right there. And I went to go get a glass one day and I was like, what the heck? It doesn't taste as strong as normal. And so I told my wife, I was like, taste this. And she's like, it tastes like it's watered down. And so my daughter was going out there and just pouring big old glasses and drinking it. And then she realized that she drank a lot. And so she put water in there to like dilute it and like make it look like it was still full.
Yep. She was slick.
And she was only like 7 or 8 at the time. And I was like, man, she figured that out. That's pretty good.
That works well with vodka. It doesn't work with apple cider.
Oh, not yeah, right. So I'm gonna pour my whiskey. I told you guys it was kind of a fun one, something for our listeners that are, maybe not whiskey drinkers per se, but might bring them in. So this bottle is pulled out of the cooler. This is, see if I can get the camera to focus here so you guys can see it. So Knuckle Noggin. Have you guys ever seen this stuff out on the market? It is a salted caramel whiskey.
Whoa. I love salted caramel.
Really good marketing. So the bottle's actually upside down. That's how they do their labels. Wow. This is the first, when they first went to market, they came out with it. They came out shortly after a very famous peanut butter whiskey called Screwball. Shortly after Screwball came out and launched, Knuckle Noggin was out and they came out with the salted caramel whiskey. And I was put together at the time by a Costco like tasting thing that they did. And I was like, well, I don't know if I'm gonna like this.
Costco's
I like my whiskey unflavored.
Liquor store ever.
It is, because you can find some good finds there, but they had this. It's 35% alcohol. And what I've found over the years, because I continually buy this, I still buy Screwball too, because I like to use mix drinks out of it. This is like my gateway for like if we have guests over and they're like, I want something a little different than beer, because I always have beer. I've got a beer fridge outside and it's always stocked with all kinds of shit. But when it comes to like, if I want to pull out whiskey, like most people are, they're going to be like, I don't drink whiskey. I'm like, well, you know what? Like I might have something for you. So I usually have some Screwball and I have some Knuckle Noggin. And this is, like I said, salted caramel. I've done so many cool things with this to drink it. One of my favorite things is obviously coffee, like cold brew coffee. You put some salted caramel Knuckle Noggin in there, get your day started off right, or if you're going out to play some golf or something like that.
Whiskey at 9 a.m. I don't know.
Right?
No, it's just coffee.
Hair of the dog.
No whiskey.
Right?
Yeah, exactly.
And as far as soda pop, we were talking about, Jack and Coke and stuff like that. This pairs so good with Dr. Pepper. Dr. Pepper, Knuckle Noggin, definitely an amazing mix. I
love the bottle though. I love that flip top cap.
Yeah, it's cool.
So
you got the little top right there. We'll pop it open real quick for you guys.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So I've seen that with another brand that does a similar pop top like that, and it's a recyclable.
Yes.
Right. So like they do the whole encouraging to send the top back and they give so many, anyway, it's recyclable. But again, military, so I'll tell a funny military story. I was a sergeant major and I was in charge of a bunch of enlisted soldiers at any given time. And at one point in time, I took a group on an exercise and we had to go traveling to a city in New Jersey, and I put them all up in a hotel, and Screwball was kind of coming out on the market, right? At the time we're traveling. So we go to this hotel and it is probably 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. Again, I'm the guy in charge, and I hear some commotion in the hallways, and I'm like, what the hell? Come out in the hallways. I look around and I don't see anything. Okay. I go back in my room, hear it again. Come out in the hallways. I don't see anything. Go back in my room. Finally, I go to bed. The next morning, I have a meeting with all my guys, and I'm like, what the hell was going on last night? Whatever. So I was introduced to what was called a Reese's peanut butter cup.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Yeah. So one of my guys decided that there was a version of a White Russian with screwball
Mm-hmm.
that they called a Reese's peanut butter cup, and he drank a shitload of them. Is the exact phrase that everybody gave me when I was like, "How much did he drink?" And they're like, "Oh, Sergeant Major, he drank a shitload." And I'm like, "Oh my God." So anyway, so the commotion in the hallway was him trying to find his room because he had drank an entire bunch of them, which consisted of screwball whiskey, some sort of cream, and I don't know what else. But some way it was a peanut butter cup, as they called it.
Yeah. Probably some kind of chocolate cream liqueur
Yeah, sure.
mixed
Right.
with the,
Like,
with the screwball.
right.
Yeah, it was obviously it was fantastic. I never tried them, but yeah, no, great time had by all.
One of my favorite things to do with screwball was like when it first came out, obviously, drink it straight or you put it over ice cream. Super good with ice cream.
Yeah, I
But
hear that
obviously
too.
with the beer is Belching Beaver's peanut butter stout. You do like an Irish car bomb with that, like usually Irish car bomb, Jameson and Guinness. Instead, do the peanut butter stout and drop a shot of screwball in there, and it tastes like a peanut butter cup. It's stupid. I was doing that for a long time. And then Carl Strauss makes a peanut butter cup porter, one of my favorite beers. I've done it with that too as well. Really, really
Belching
good.
Beaver.
Yeah. Belching Beaver. You guys see that back there? They're in distro now, all over the
No,
country.
we don't. I
Yeah,
love the name. Yeah, I
yeah,
get in
they have
trouble
a
for that. That's amazing.
yeah, they have a cool like logo.
I love that the
Yeah.
craft brew market has these great names. I just did. I'm sorry.
Absolutely.
They're amazing.
So I just took a sip of this knuckle noggin, and you missed it when you were in the restroom, but Phil saw it. Is I got a whiskey cube in here, so it's just on a whiskey cube, and man, this stuff is so dangerous. Like, again, if I drink, whiskey, I like the Irish style, and then I also love Kentucky bourbons and stuff like that. But this is something definitely not normally in my wheelhouse, but it's so easy drinking. It's dangerous.
Yes.
Like I just took a big swig of it right now. And if I'm not a whiskey drinker, like this is something that's perfect for the app. Like, someone that's non-traditional whiskey drinker that wants like kind of a sweet, robust flavor. And you really don't, unless you're someone that's familiar with whiskey, you don't taste the whiskey. It tastes more like a caramely, syrupy kind of flavor, and a lot of coffee notes too as well. But I taste the whiskey in there. But non-whiskey drinker would be like, oh, this is just like really good liqueur flavor. It tastes like salted caramel, like almost like a mocha kind of thing.
So, being I drink more whiskey than beer, but I mean, I have stayed away from the flavored whiskeys for the most part, and it's mainly because I don't know. I like the actual flavor of the whiskey, and I don't want the sugary content to it.
Yeah.
Have you messed around with any of the Crown Royal flavored ones?
Yes.
They've got a whole line now,
yes.
I guess.
So I've done the apple, and what I've done with that is like different like mixed drinks. Usually like I don't drink them straight like this. It's mainly for like mixed purposes. I had a friend of mine tell me the other day the blackberry one is really, really good. I haven't tried it yet.
I've not tried that yet either, but I've heard great things about that.
But we went to.
I'm a big fan of just straight, like no ice, no nothing, just straight whiskey. So I stay away from a lot of the flavor ones, and I don't know.
I'm with you on that. I'm with you.
I kind of just like the straight flavor,
Me as well.
But,
like so.
Oh man, I don't know.
When you get into whiskey, like for myself, obviously I'm craft beer all the way, and but then I really got into whiskey actually 6 years ago when I took that class on the cruise, and we're going to have another one here pretty soon. I started like, wow, okay. Other than Jameson, I there's some flavors that I've never knew before, because I'm like, oh, like maybe I had a really bad whiskey or a smoked whiskey or something I didn't care for, and I'm like, it opened up my eyes to more and more. And if I'm gonna drink whiskey, like you said, I don't like the flavored whiskeys. I want that experience. Depending on what it is, like I want to, if I'm using a whiskey cube, or if I've got these really cool things. My mother-in-law got me their stones, like whiskey stones that you throw in there.
Yeah, I have stainless steel stones.
Stainless steel, yeah. So like I want to pour, I love the stainless steel and the stones, because I don't have to worry about it like watering it down. It can sit there for a while. Also, it's technically my wife's uncle, but Uncle Craig, he's going on the cruise with us, and he's been on the show before. He's got a brewery in the Branson area. He got me into moonshine and other things too as well, but like he's big time into drinking, and he's just like, yeah, you can throw these in a Yeti tumbler with the whiskey stones, and you can sip on this shit for hours. Like fill it up, don't pour a little, don't be pouring a little sample, like pour yourself a full 16, 18 ounce pour, half the bottle or the full bottle, depending on what size bottle it is. And it will stay cold the whole day, and you can sip on it. And so I do that every once in a while. When I get in that mood, it's like, it's a mood for me, right? Mainly I'm drinking the craft beer, but every once in a while I'm like, you know what? Today's a whiskey kind of day, or a bourbon kind of day. Like here I go, and I'll pour it in that tumbler, and I'll have my whiskey stones, and I'll just sip on it all day long. And then really care to mix it.
So dad secret, future for you, do that same, thing on Halloween when you have to walk around and do trick-or-treating.
And sip on it all night. That's smart.
Just keep the Yeti. And then, future, when they get older and you're not trick-or-treating and you're stuck at home passing out candy, keep the cooler next to you always. So there's the candy bin for the kids, and there's the dad cooler.
Yeah, and if you hand out beers to the parents, you get a really good turnout the next year.
Hell yeah!
We do that every year. We have the kids go out, they go trick or treating. We have the little bin for candy, and then we have the dad cooler with beers.
I love it. And I was actually thinking this year for Halloween, setting up my special event tent in the front yard, and BeerDads Brewers, good marketing, and I'll hand the candy out to the kids, and when the parents come, I'll be like, hey, would you like to sample some beer? And here you go.
Right? Yeah, I love that. 100% love it. That is,
I think that's go out, and you will have record attendance the following year.
Yeah, I'm coming to test. I'm coming to trick or treat in your neighborhood.
Right. All of a sudden, I'm like, I don't recognize you, bro. Like, where are you from? Maybe I'm like 100 miles away.
People coming by the house. They showed up a day early.
Right? It's like when we were kids, we used to find out all the neighborhoods that handed out the real normal size candy bars. Yeah. So for us in San Diego, there's a kind of a wealthy community called La Jolla. It's actually their own little city within San Diego. It's right on the beach, and a lot of celebrities, sports athletes and stuff live there. All the houses are $2, $3, $4 million. And, we would go trick or treating up in those areas. And that's when you get those king size candy bars. And sometimes I remember one year we went somewhere trick or treating in that area, and it not only was a king size bar, but they paper clipped a $5 bill to the king size bar. And I'm like, this is amazing.
Here's a $5 bill, a candy bar, and we validated your parking.
Right? Exactly.
Wait a minute, that's a thing?
Yeah.
No.
I just something popped in my head. Crazy idea. It's always because I'm drinking, but imagine a Halloween just for adults, and you went trick or treating, and at every house it was a pour of beer or a pour of bourbon, whiskey, vodka, whatever it is.
You say that. That's funny. Where one of the towns I used to live in, I would go to my buddy's house, and they had just a dead end street with a cul-de-sac at the end. And it's probably, dozen and a half houses. And that's what they did. The kids got candy and the parents passed out beer.
Yeah.
And it was that awesome. Was the thing. By the time you got to the third house, you were ready for your next beer, and you'd crack it.
There are a lot of neighborhoods that do that kind of thing, because I have that in Pennsylvania a little bit. Mm-hmm. But it's it's very quiet.
Yeah, that's
very quiet as it kept, because I think there's probably some issues with liability.
With pushing your kid around in a stroller with a beer in one hand. There's more in the
open container in public consumptions. I think there's probably some issues there. But anyway, I mean, whatever. Nobody cares.
As long as the neighborhood's on board.
That's right. So, Brandon, I seen you pour your special pour here, something different. So we already talked about Knuckle Noggin. Go check them out on Instagram, Facebook, wherever you find them. But really good salted caramel flavored whiskey for those folks that want to get into whiskey and you want something with flavor. Check it out. But what are you drinking, Brandon? You said there's a story behind it.
Yeah, man. Well, first of all, I definitely want to check out what you're drinking. I hadn't even heard of that. No, yeah. I saw it. No, I saw it. Yeah, but I didn't know that existed. So that sounds really good.
I know Bex, your significant other, your fiance, is definitely into coffee. So you might want to get some of that for her to mix with her coffee for sure.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Okay, for me, so I am an appreciator of all types of alcohol, but my top 3 is obviously beer at the top. I love wine, and whiskey is like my 3rd. Those are my top 3. So usually I'll keep, usually I'm pretty stocked up on beer and wine, and usually I have like maybe a whiskey, 2 whiskeys in the house, depending on, the season or whatnot. But when we, booked this podcast with you guys, Justin was like, hey, let's have some whiskey and beer on the show. I'm like, all right, what kind of whiskey do I have? And I only had, because I love Irish whiskey, I only had Jameson. I was like, man, I can't be drinking Jameson on the show. These guys are going to clown me. I can't do that.
No, go ahead. What you got?
So I was like, all right, on my lunch break, one of these days before the podcast, I got to go get some whiskey. So I was at my local Trader Joe's near my office. I was in a rush. I'm over in the very small liquor section over there. I'm like, all right, let's look at these whiskey options. They had some really expensive options. I was like, it's a little bit out of my price range, especially for a guy. We talked before, obviously I wasn't able to sample it, and, I was like, all right, these are a little out of my price range. So I found there was a good Japanese whiskey that I was like, oh, that looks really good. And I like Japanese whiskey, but
Japanese.
I was like, man, I see this Irish whiskey over here. And like I said, I'm an Irish whiskey fan. I'm going to go for the Irish just to save $3. So I check out and I'm like, all right, cool. I'm good. And then later that day, when I get home that night, I'm, pulling it out of my backpack or whatever, and I'm putting it over on my little bar cart. And I'm looking at it a little bit further, and I'm like, wait a second. This isn't Irish whiskey. It's Scotch. So you guys may know this brand. I had not heard of it prior. Finlaggan.
No, that's a new one to me.
I don't know that one.
Single malt Scotch whiskey. Okay.
Now, to my defense, I saw a name like Finlaggan, and I thought, oh, that's surely Irish. But
deceived. That's okay.
That's all right.
Got deceived. Okay, so now obviously when we're going Scotch, and then I'm thinking in retrospect, man, if only I had an app that I could have looked this up on.
Well, there you go.
There it is.
Because I'm pretty sure there's only 3 Irish whiskeys. You got Bushmills, and you got Tullador, and you got Jameson. That's it, right?
Right, yeah. Very few options. Yeah, but then I was like, man, that's why it's going to be great to, talk to Mike and Phil tonight, learn more about the app and everything. And anyway, so yeah, I've been drinking a little bit of this. I'm not a Scotch fan at all. The peat really gets to me. I've definitely had some Scotches that I like, but overall, just obviously Scotch is such an acquired taste. It's got such like a strong, unique taste to it.
One, though?
so I tried a little bit before the show just because I was like, all right, I gotta try it out, and
Make sure it's not like horrible,
You don't want
right?
that oh damn face on air,
and
like, oh shit.
yeah, and my fiance was nearby, and she was kind of looking. She was like, "Oh, how is it?" I was like, "Well, imagine if we walked out to the street. So there's a street near me. It's called Canaan Road. I was like, imagine we walked out to Canaan out there, and we had police barricades. They blocked off the street, and I walk into the middle of the police barricade, and everybody's looking. There's all these cars. It's totally stopped traffic, and I get down on all fours, and I just licked the pavement of Canaan Boulevard over here, Canaan Road. That's what this tastes like. It's horrible. It's terrible.
I can actually like visualize that because I've tasted some whiskeys. Like, yep, I know exactly what you're talking about.
But like kind of what we were talking about before. Like full disclosure, I'm not a when it comes to Scotch, my palate is not sophisticated.
Yeah, me either. Yeah, absolutely.
On Scotch in my life, so perhaps somebody that knew more about Scotch would say, "Hey,
somebody's into
pretty good." Yeah, somebody's into it.
Somebody has to be, I guess.
And that's the beauty of this app is everybody has a different palate, and it will tell you based upon your palate and all your different beers, whiskeys, vodkas, rums, whatever you're checking in. Like it'll like we know what you like. Right. Just like Spotify. Every year I get that like top 5 or top 10 or whatever the hell it is. And it's like, yeah, you apparently are a West Coast rap fan and a little bit of country.
That right there is the best part about it is at the end of the year, you get that. Here's your top 10 likes.
Yeah. You are a Tupac IPA drinker.
That's right. For some reason, I don't know why, but my number one podcast is the BeerDad and Brewed podcast. I don't know why.
I don't know why either.
It's what it is.
I mean, that's kind of, not to be like too promotional or anything, but like to tie it all together. I had this funny experience buying the Scotch, meant to get more, like a traditional whiskey or get something Irish. Cause like I said, I love Irish. And to me, it was just kind of like fortuitous because I was like, oh, it's perfect. I'm talking to these guys that are developing this wonderful app. That would have helped me in this situation. Had I had the app, had it been out yet, I would have been able to save myself from this situation.
If you'd only waited 2 weeks.
Exactly. Right. So man, I'm so excited to try the app and check it out. I'm definitely gonna be one of the first people in the community rating stuff as soon as that feature comes out.
Brandon, we love it. Just again, be gentle. This is Tesla version 1.
For sure. No, for sure. Yeah. Hey,
he'll be good. I think that's the first time he's ever said that something he's drank tasted like the asphalt. So yeah, he I would say like 99% of the time, like I could tell, like if he doesn't like something, he'll still say it's good. But that was pretty.
I feel like that's a t-shirt worthy quote. Like it tastes like the asphalt.
It tastes like asphalt. What? That's true though. Like sometimes, even in beer, like I've had some beers that I'm like, holy shit. And somebody else could be like, this is amazing. And I'm just like, are you freaking kidding me right now? Like, and everybody's palate's different.
Lick the asphalt too.
Somebody has a red stapler and they sit in the basement.
Right. Well, I mean, I give you an example. Josh, my former co-host, he was really into smoky anything. Whether it be any kind of distilled liquor or moonshine or beer. And I'm just like, I'm hit and miss when it comes to anything smoky. Like we just had a beer recently on that Cuck episode where it was like a smoked habanero porter, and it was amazing. I loved it. And I was like, man, I can cook with this shit and then drink it and enjoy it. But then there's other things that I'm like, Josh, that would be like, oh, this is fucking good. Try it. Right. That's how he talked. I can remember, and I miss that dude, but he'd be like, here, it's fucking good, man. Try it. And I'd be like, oh my God, Josh, this tastes like shit. Right. And then for me, the same thing, like there were things that I liked, like I love this is going to sound crazy, but I love Martin House's pickle beer. They're from Texas. They make a kettle sour with pickle
I
juice.
get you. I get you.
Tastes like
Actually,
carbonated
that
pickle
sounds
juice.
pretty damn good.
Yeah,
I
no,
get
makes an
you.
amazing michelada, makes an amazing pickleback if you're drinking Irish whiskey.
Yeah.
You don't need to
No,
pour
thank
pickle
you.
juice, just drink that.
Even marinate some chicken or
Oh,
something in
hell
that.
yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
man.
some
No,
chicken, make some hot
no
chicken.
thanks to Michelada.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, this
No.
stuff is good. And Josh hated pickles. He drank it one time and he was like, listen, buddy, I love you, bro. That's how he would tell me. I love you, bro, but this tastes like
Here's
shit.
something you don't want to hear. But
Right? But I loved it, right? And so that I think that's the beauty of your app is it's going to cater to what your tastes are and what you like,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
recommend things. Especially like for me, I love to travel and I love to go to places, and I'm like, okay, my wife always accuses me of this, is like she always got to find a brewery in the area, right? When I do. But I'm like, okay, so what do I like? And when I go to a brewery, and what's great for you, for your app, is like it can tell people based upon what you've been drinking and what you like, here's what you might like here. And like you said, in some states, in some areas, it gets pricey because based upon ABC laws and different things. And so you definitely can help some people, especially like on the distilled side, that gets expensive.
I travel all the way out to San Diego, right? And I come all the way out to, check out, BeerDad Brewery. And I'm hanging out and I'm like, look, man, I don't want to try, 30 different beers on your shelf. But I know that there's these two that just kind of fit with what I like. So give me those two. And, maybe it's a flight, maybe it's two full pours, whatever, but I'm just going to go for it. And, at the end of the day, maybe they're like, I like 3 out of your 5. So give me a flight because I want to try everything. And, maybe the algorithm isn't 100% perfect. So I want to try everything. But either way, it's going to put you in the ballpark, man. I mean, that's the idea. There's no way I can guarantee that I'm going to say that if you like BeerDad's breweries, IPA, that if you click like, I'm going to give you every beer that you're going to love that compares exactly to that. I can't promise that. But what I can tell you is that I'm going to give you beers that have similar flavors. And you may or may not like them. And as we, scope that in and narrow it and get it closer, you're going to get what you get. And we're going to try to do that for you. We're just taking a little bit of the guesswork out and trying to make it better for you. That's one for you as the user. But at the end of the day, I mean, look, I love the user because the consumer at the end of the day that's the business. That's where we want to sell to. You as a brewer, you as a podcast, you all want to sell. We all want to get the consumer to like our products. But for me, I want the consumer to love the product, but I also want to introduce the consumer to products that they couldn't normally see. Right. They walk into San Diego's nearest liquor store and they may or may not see your brand.
Well, you want them to look past the label.
Right.
That's a big thing.
So they may or may not see your brand. They may or may not see your label. They may or may not know whatever. And if I only have my $10 to buy a beer, or my $12 to buy the 4-pack, right? Am I buying the 4-pack that I know I'll enjoy? Or am I buying the 4-pack that is local?
Yeah, that's the thing. You're going to look at it. You're going to be like, oh, yeah, the art's cool. Oh, yeah, that bottle looks like it was sourced locally. But at the end of the day, it's like I'm only buying one 4-pack, 6-pack, whatever. I'm going to go with the one that I know that I like.
Yeah.
So we're trying to help
You're not
level
going to
that
experiment.
out. We're trying to help level that out. I mean, just make it a little bit easier for the consumer to figure that piece out. Make it a little easier for you guys as brewers, as everybody as brewers to kind of compete in that space.
Yeah, and we'll get your hat in the ring.
Yeah. That's it, man. I mean, that's where we're at.
I love it. Well, we've heard amazing things. I can't wait for our listeners to listen to this show, to hear an experience and hear about your app that's about to launch in a couple weeks. And I'm really excited. I'm excited because, like I said, I don't like Untapped, and I like the way that this app is going, right? And we know it's going to be in its infant stages and it's going to evolve and evolve and evolve. But I like the idea, and I think it's great. And I think you guys are launching at the perfect time because there's so much going on right now with new drinkers. And people coming into this realm in this world of craft beer and distilled beverages and stuff like that. And I think you guys are doing a really huge service to everybody in this industry and in this community. So I thank you for that. And all of our listeners have to check out the beer book. I'm sorry, the bar book. I'm always thinking about beer. Check out the bar book. Check this app out. You got to download it when it comes out. You said 2 weeks from now. We'll probably launch this episode in the next day or so. Brandon's always on it really quick as far as getting it ready. And then I usually hit it on our RSS feed. So we'll let you guys know. But the listeners, definitely check out the bar book, because I think this is a revolutionary thing for the industry for both craft beer as well as distilled beverages. I was really excited that we actually had distilled beverages on the show. We haven't done it before. We're going to do it in the future. I know I have a really good friend of mine, and we were talking about Tennessee. He's one of the part owners / managers of a distillery there. And I think that I would love to have them on the show. I keep telling Shane, it's what is it called? Southern Distillery. I'll have to look at Southern something. But they just launched and would love to have them on the show. Yeah, there's so many people that are coming into this, new group of drinkers that, hey, I don't like this. I've never drank it before or whatever. And there's always, like, we call them gateway drugs, and your app is going to bring these people in. And I'm really excited.
The other generations are the younger ones that have come up, drinking only what their parents had in the liquor cabinet, and they have no idea what else is out there. Yeah. Dad's liquor tastes like crap. I'll tell you, my stepdad, so you'll like this, Army veteran, big red one, Vietnam War. He passed away a couple of years ago. But man, what a hero. Some of the stories, like, he could be a movie, like, hero, like the shit that he went through in Vietnam. But it was one of his favorite liquors, and my brother and I, oh my God, we thought it tastes terrible, but there's always an audience for everybody. But Drambuie, I don't know if you've ever had that. Holy crap, does that taste like shit? But he loved that stuff. I miss him, John. He's rest in peace. John Lang, big red one, Vietnam veteran, war hero, all kinds of crazy stories. And my brother will love that shout out. He would try to give us some of that Drambuie, and it was, but somebody loves it, right? He loved it. That was one of his favorite drinks. Yeah. So there's a palate for everything. And I think what you guys are doing is amazing. And we're going to wrap it up here.
Hey, Justin, I would tell you one thing. Look, exactly what you said, man. Give us the chance to let you, discover something new. Give us a chance to let you learn a new flavor profile and whatever. And let us show you some different products, and let us show you the market in a whole new way.
Absolutely.
Stick with us. And the last thing I'll leave you with is, if it's not meeting your expectations, if the bar book is not hitting what you thought it would hit, reach out. We're small enough that your words mean a lot to us. So give us feedback and tell us, and we're going to do what we can to make it better for you and to meet all these expectations. So, between you and Brandon, I totally appreciate everything you guys are doing. At least giving us the recognition to show us out there a little bit. But again, if your listeners, anybody out there finds like, hey man, this is missing the mark in X way or Y way, tell us, respond to us, send us a message, however you need to get in touch, and let us know to fix it.
Cool. I love it. And I hope our listeners love it too. And I hope they all follow the bar book and follow the journey. Like I said, I'm calling it right now. You guys are on our podcast, our lonely old podcast. I say lonely old podcast. We have 10,000 listeners, but
you guys are lonely.
Took us a while, right? We're coming up on our 5-year anniversary, but one day you guys are going to be huge, and we can say that you were on our podcast. Because I think this is a really great idea, and I kudos to you guys, and thank you for putting a spotlight on the industry for both beer and distilled beverages. I think our listeners are going to relate to this, and I really encourage them to go check you guys out. And I wish you guys nothing but 100% success. And I hope that it just takes off, right? You guys are on the right path, because we've been starving for an app like this. This is an app that I think is going to be different in the industry that we have never seen before. So this is awesome. So thank you guys. Brandon, thank you for joining us from Agora Hills. And of course, Mike and Phil, thank you for joining us from Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. Little backstory, just real quick before we end the show. I almost bought a house in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. Back in the day, I was in the RV industry before I became a first responder, and my territory was the East Coast, and so I worked for Alpha Motorhomes, and I was back east all the time, and we had a client in South Carolina, and I just loved the area. I loved everything about Myrtle Beach. And
beautiful here.
Got with a realtor. We almost bought a house, and thank God, I probably would have figured it out, but we almost bought a house there. I was trying to talk my wife into it early on in our marriage, and at the time, the houses were ridiculous. You could buy like a house, like practically like you had like an estuary where you had a dock in the back of your backyard, and there was a boat included with this house, and it was like, at the time, I think it was like $200,000. And I told my wife, like, this is the house, and then of course, like a week or so after I was going to meet with a realtor, like I got laid off from the company, and the company went out of business, because that was right before the recession back in like 2007, 2008. And I'm like, oh, well, I almost ended up in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, but I love the area. The beach is amazing.
Yes,
I can't remember the name of the mall, but there's like, I don't know if you guys have been there. There's like an outdoor mall that has like a little pond or lake in between it, and all the shops are around it, and you can like feed like carp in there. I was like, that place is cool. I found a really good Brazilian steakhouse there. There was good food, different things. And the minor league baseball team, the Pelicans, I went to a game with one of the salespeople that worked for the dealership. He had season tickets. We went to saw the Pelicans play, which I believe is the Braves minor league team. And great area. So funny that you guys are there, and I almost lived there. But things happen for a reason. And like I said, I would probably not been doing the podcast, and here we are, and we got to meet Mike and Phil from the Bar Book. Amazing story. Again, Mike, thank you for your service in the Army. I think that's amazing. I think that people should be more spotlighting veterans, because I think obviously our freedoms, we don't have them without veterans. A lot of people don't put that on the spotlight, and we do. I grew up in a family that has military veterans. My stepdad, John, was in the Army. Both my grandfathers on my dad and my mom's side were Navy. And I think that, military service is a big deal. And thank you. So this is really awesome. So thank you so much for being a part of our show. And everybody that listens to the BeerDad Brew podcast, go download the Bar Book when it comes out. Follow these guys on Instagram, Facebook, where all the social media platforms. You guys on TikTok yet?
No, not TikTok yet, but Instagram, Facebook. Yeah, we're there.
Yeah. Okay, good. Yeah, I went the TikTok realm. I will say this, and I know you guys are in the podcast realm, but I was so against TikTok. I put it on there, and our downloads almost tripled just by being on there. And it's weird because we don't have that many followers on TikTok, but for some reason, our downloads tripled. So I'm not a big fan of the TikToks.
That's a topic for another day.
Right? Even though my daughter, she's super into it, and I'm just like, I hate this thing. But
the kids
it works.
It's a whole other genre.
That's right. So again, thank you guys. Bar Book, check it out on your app stores. Coming soon in the next couple of weeks. Thank you guys, Mike and Phil. Brandon, Mike and Phil are going to have to meet Grandma here, yeah, she's going to close out the show. What do you think, Brandon?
Yeah, let's do it. Grandma, take it away.
All right. Cheers, everybody.
They also practice by drinking the urine of a ram.
The what?
They drink ram's piss.
Because of the pH balance?
No, because if you can drink ram's piss, fuck, you can drink almost anything.
She said fuck.
What is the malted liquor? What gets you drunker, quicker? What comes in bottles or in cans? Beer! Can't get enough of it. Beer! How we really love it. Beer! Makes me think I'm a man. Beer! I could kiss and hug it. Beer! But I'd rather chug it. Beer! Got my belly out to here. Beer! I could not refuse it. Beer! I could really use it. Beer! I can't remember how much I have had.
I drank a 12-pack with my dad.